Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Good to see you, brother. What's going on, man?
Good to see you, man.
Thank you very much for that extraordinary piece of athletic equipment you brought to the gym.
Absolutely. Well,
Is there a photo of that so we can show people what it looks like?
yeah, it should be on the website X Factor.
And what is it called?
It's called the X Factor.
Oh, it's called the X Factor. What is the website?
SorinX.com.
Go to sorinx.com. Check out the X Factor.
So it's actually pull it up, Jamie.
Pull it up, Jamie. Isn't that nice to say that?
Gosh, man,
It's
I'm
fun,
telling
right?
you, it's big.
So this is the machine.
Yeah, it's actually Judd who was here a minute ago.
Yeah, it's a brilliant machine, man. The idea that you could push and pull rotational power machine. It really is a genius idea, man. And for things like striking sports, that's huge. Like the ability to push and pull at the same time while stabilizing your core. I mean, that is undoubtedly going to help people. Like, you're definitely going to be able to deliver more power in strikes.
Right, because you take the ground force and then be able to put it through, obviously, with the core. Because that's all three planes of motion obviously go through your core, and then puts it into either your feet or your arms. So.
It's just so unusual that you can do something like that. I mean, I guess you kind of can do something like that with cables, with the cable machine, but that seems better.
Yeah, because you have a little bit of a balance component as well. But you're right. Like you're blocking. Let's say you're a right-hander, you're blocking on that left leg. You're stabilizing out the right hamstring and hip. But yeah, especially when you get that little extra extension, I call it the riblets right there, your obliques, it just locks everything in. So I'm interested to see what you come up with.
It's pretty dope. And you were telling me that this was originally, like you came up with this idea from an older machine that's not around anymore?
Yeah. So we I've been in this industry a long time, and as well as you have, but it's kind of taken a remastered series where we're taking all like the cool stuff that could have been our designs, but it could have been just old designs that are just like kind of lost to the ages. And you're like, hey, that was a cool piece, but it sucked because you had to load it weird, or it was like maybe wasn't as safe as it could have been. And so it's like, let's break the whole thing apart, figure out what was good about it. And then that was like the 8th iteration. We just kept playing with it. And then it was like, when you realize the double axis is what made the user experience cool, then it was like, okay, this is badass. And, I sent that video to you, and then a couple colleges have already bought them. And then Ryan Krauser, the world champion and record holder in the shot put, was like, yeah, like this is all rotational power. How do we turn that on? So,
yeah, it's so cool today because there's so much social media and there's so many videos and YouTube videos of people using equipment. Like 15, 20 years ago, you had to go to a gym and go, oh, what is that? Oh, that's cool. Where'd you get that? How's that work?
The big guy in the gym, you had to like go, hey, what's the deal?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I grew up in the same era where we're going to gyms all the time, and there's a bunch of quacks telling you to do stuff. And,
always, yeah. And then there's bro scientists.
Total bro scientists. Yeah. And then you just like, hey, if that guy's really good at something, I mean, back in the day, I would, after I'd compete, probably much like you, after I compete, I would get whoever was better than me, and I would offer to take him out to dinner. And I would just go, hey, like I'd feed them beers until they basically told me how they beat me. Just like, well, how much are you cleaning, or what are you doing? Then I would pick up some little idiosyncrasy of training. And they're like, oh, we would do this contrast. And I'm like, what's that? And I would just keep digging and digging and digging. I'd go back and figure it out.
Well, I remember when I was competing, they would tell you to not lift weights, which is so hilarious.
You don't get muscle bound, Joe.
They used to say that. They used to say it will slow you down and you'll become tight.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, why don't you just stretch if you're tight?
Yeah. So more horsepower makes the car slower?
It didn't make any sense to me. It's like they thought that the only exercises you should do is martial arts itself. Just hit the bag,
right?
Train.
Now, when do you think that? Well, you got, Bruce Lee would do. I mean, he did some exercise.
Did a lot of isometrics.
Yeah. And he had some lifting, but it was always pretty light. But what would you say was when that changed?
I think it was Evander Holyfield.
Yeah.
I think it was Mackie Shilstone trained Evander Holyfield when he went up to heavyweight. And I remember myself at the time, so this was in the 90s, I remember thinking, what is he doing? He's lifting weights. He's going to fuck himself up. Doesn't he know that all these coaches have already figured it out?
Right.
And then all of a sudden Evander got all these traps and
Dude,
shoulders.
he was trapped and
got
dealt it
jacked.
out.
He
What?
got jacked.
Yeah.
And he became a legitimate heavyweight. Also, pretty sure there were some Mexican supplements involved.
Yeah, he might have gone across the border at times. I'm not.
I think it's a
It
strong
was the 90s.
possibility.
The 90s were a good time.
I think it's a strong possibility that there was some help. Because also, like, you never heard of anybody testing positive for steroids back then.
No.
And I know for a fact that some of those guys were on steroids.
I would
Yeah.
not disagree.
I know people who know
Yeah,
people, and I
yeah,
know.
I mean, we're all in the same
I would
world.
fucking put it all on black.
Yeah. Well, because up until 91, steroids weren't even illegal as a controlled substance. Is
Do you
that
know who
accurate?
caused it to be illegal? Joe Biden.
No shit.
Yep, that motherfucker. It was all him. Yeah.
You know,
Derek from More Plates, More Dates was telling us about it the other
Right.
day. I'm like, that motherfucker. He did it.
that should be alone a reason why.
Well, I guess the idea is that people could abuse it, right?
Right.
But here's the deal, folks. You can abuse almost everything.
Sure.
This is my argument against online gambling. You know, there's a lot of people that think online gambling should be banned because so many people are losing money on online gambling. Shut the fuck up. Do you know how easy it is to not online gamble? It's so easy. You know how easy it is? I've never online gambled.
It makes two of us.
That's how easy it is to not online gamble.
I'd probably forget my password to
Yeah.
get into the thing, but yeah.
Like, I'm not discounting the
Right.
fact that gambling is addictive. I personally know gambling addicts. One of my best friends, Dana White, is a fucking gambling addict. He happens to be insanely wealthy, so he can get away with it. But
that helps.
I grew up in pool halls. I know
Yeah.
gambling addicts. I get it. I'm not one.
Yeah.
So it's possible to like fucking have some self-control and discipline and willpower.
The weird thing, I've never done crack either.
Crazy.
It's
Do you know
strange.
crack is everywhere and it's a scourge of humanity? I've never done crack.
You know, it's really weird. I've never even seen crack.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
weird.
I saw cocaine once in my entire life, which is wild based on.
That is pretty wild.
I know a lot of people, and it's like, yeah, like, did they just think I would just say no to that? Because I grew up in the 80s, just say no generation. But
I haven't seen
I didn't
coke
think it was like a real thing.
since I was in high school. I've never.
Really?
Yeah. Which is kind of crazy because I know so many people who do coke.
Yeah.
But I was at a party in high school the last time I saw someone doing coke.
No way.
Yeah.
In your world.
Yeah, my world. Yeah. Well, I don't do anything like that. I don't ever fuck around. I've never done coke. I've never even thought about doing it.
Yeah.
I've never had the desire because
Do
I
you-
was around people that were abusing it when I was in high school.
Sure.
So I was like, okay.
Do you think that's because you're such like a strong personality and like kind of role model that people are like, hey, Joe's not into that, like keep it away from him? Do you think they're like respectful of that and just kind of know the deal?
They just know I don't want it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
I'm just not interested in anything that gives me more confidence. I'm not interested in that. I got plenty of that. I like humility. I'm looking for humility.
Right.
I don't like confidence boosters.
Yeah,
I don't like anything that gives you like a ridiculous sense of like your
Yeah.
abilities. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
I'd rather be humble. Like, I'm not
Yes.
interested in.
I mean, delusionment is a strong suit. If you,
Sometimes.
yeah, no, and it could get you bound up too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it gets you pretty far, and then your fucking wheels come off. and you're in
Speed
a ditch.
wobbles. It's like when you're skateboarding when you're a kid and you just
Or have you ever seen a guy on a motorcycle and you see when they do that and you're like, no! This episode is brought to you by The Farmer's Dog. Dogs are amazing. They're loyal. They're lovable. Like, just having Marshall around can make my day 10 times better. And I'm sure you love your dog just as much, and you want to do your best to help them live longer, healthier, happier lives. And a healthy life for your dog starts with healthy food, just like it does for us. There's a reason having a balanced diet is so important. So how do you know if your dog's food is as healthy and as safe as it can be? Well, Farmer's Dog gives you that peace of mind by making fresh, real food developed by board-certified nutritionists to provide all the nutrients your dog needs. And their food is human grade, which means it's made to the same quality and safety standards as human food. Very few pet foods are made to this strict standard. And let's be clear, human grade food doesn't mean the food is fancy. It just means it's safe and healthy. It's simple, real food from people who care about what goes into your dog's body. The Farmer's Dog makes it easy to help your dog live a long, healthy life by sending you fresh food that's pre-portioned just for your dog's needs. Because every dog is different. And I'm not just talking about breeds. From their size to their personality to their health, every dog is unique. Plus, precise portions can help keep your dog at an ideal weight, which is one of the proven predictors of a long life. Look, no one, dog or human, should be eating highly processed foods for every meal. It doesn't matter how old your dog is. It's always a great time to start investing in their health and happiness. So, try the Farmer's Dog today. You can get 50% off your first box of fresh, healthy food at thefarmersdog.com/Rogan. Plus, you get free shipping. Just go to thefarmersdog.com/Rogan. Tap the banner or visit this episode's page to learn more. Offer applicable for new customers only.
It's like you had Josh
Videos?
Brolin on it the other day. That was like
Yeah.
what he did in Goonies. Remember he had the little bike?
Oh, that's right.
He was talking about the motorcycle, and all I could think about is my head is him flying off the cliff in Goonies.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Child of the
I
80s.
forgot he was in Goonies.
Yeah.
I should have brought that up. We could have
I
had
wanted
that.
to bring it up so bad.
I was on the
I was biting
plane.
my tongue the whole time.
I was riding a plane. I was like, all I could see is that cat in sweatpants with his shorts on top of his sweatpants riding a tricycle or whatever down this hill. Because
He's one of the rare guys that was like a child actor that turned out really awesome.
yeah, that's a small club.
That's a fucking super small club.
Yeah.
Because everybody that I know, and I know a few people personally that were famous as a young person, they're out of their fucking mind. They're like, you know what I say it's like? Look at him.
Hey, I have a good memory. Look at me.
How old was he back then?
He's probably 17 or 18.
That's so crazy. Well, he's 2 years younger than me, 85. In 85, I was 18. So he's probably like...
Were the 80s not so awesome?
80s were pretty cool.
80s were
Except everybody's worried that Russia was going to blow us up.
The true story.
Yeah.
True story. Yeah. I remember 85, I believe it was 85, going to, I know obviously we're both into archery. So 85, Rambo First Blood Part 2 came out. Pops took me to the movie theater. He and I saw it, and we went straight from there to the archery shop. I got my first bow that day.
Really?
Yeah, I still have it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. I still have some of the same arrows.
No shit.
Yeah, I strangely don't lose things. But yeah, I remember in the backyard shooting because like he kind of half taught me, and then I was in the backyard zinging arrows and thinking like if I had explosive tips, like how badass would this be?
I went to Lanai, and they have the Pineapple Brothers has that archery, and I brought my whole family. And then they also have this area where you can go and you can like shoot skeet, and you drive like four wheelers up in the mountains, and then they had like traditional archery, like bows and arrows. And I was like, oh, let me try this. I don't know how to fucking aim. I'm terrible at it. I was like, I'm a good archer. I should be good at this.
Or I thought.
I could barely hit the fucking target from 20 yards away.
It's like the science and the art, two different things.
They're totally different.
Yeah. I've always said like the guys that are traditional hunters, trad guys, they're either weirdos or they're absolute killers.
Right. It's like Aaron Snyder type dudes.
Yeah.
Who are so good at compound archery, they get tired of it.
Yeah, or they're weird guys that smell like sausage and live in their mom's basement. And they're like, you're like, I know you do that, but you probably go to like Ren fairs and stuff too. So I'm not sure what's the deal is.
Well, at Archery Country, the local archery shop here in town, whenever I get a new bow or I get a new sight and I have to sight it in, we go to they have an indoor range, and a lot of times in the indoor range, there's these dorks, sorry folks, dorks with recurves, and they're at 20 yards, their spread is like my arm length. Like
It's wild.
They're barely hitting the target.
It's
like,
wild.
Don't do that. This is stupid.
Yeah, you don't shoot like a cardinal direction. I'm shooting east today.
Well, when they get good, like I've seen Snyder
he's
make
such a
groups
badass.
at 40 that are like the size of a silver dollar, but most people struggle pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
But they say also that if you do want to hunt with it, you have to practice every day because it's almost like throwing a ball. Like, you know, if you're throwing a ball, you know how much the ball weighs because you've thrown it a bunch of times, and you have like this muscle memory that if I throw that hard at 20 yards, I'm going to hit that thing.
Yeah, it's like a quarterback. Like quarterbacks, I know a couple of my buddies who are
Right.
college quarterbacks. They're all good trad archers because they kind of like have that hand-eye spatial. They know the
memory.
curve. Yeah, but you got to be on that. My buddy got into it. Brandon Lilly, power lifter. He got into it, and all he hunted with for a couple of years was trad. And that cat went to like Argentina and Africa, just nuts in a sack with it. He's like, no, I'm going to trad bow. I'm like, okay, man.
I'm always like, do you hate accuracy?
No, he got it done, but holy cow! Like,
I know, but there's something about dialing it into like 47 yards,
like 40
drawing back and centering your pin, and just watching that shot break and watch that arrow go exactly where you want it to go, and swat and hit those ribs.
Just the dopamine button of all time.
Oh, it's the greatest.
It is. Can you see the arrow? Does it slow down when you shoot at animals like it does for me? It looks like there's no way this arrow is ever going to get to. It's like everything in my brain. It's like that book, The Rise of Superman, when you go in a flow state and like everything speeds up in your brain. So actually, the perception all lengthens out. They say your brain actually starts firing 3 times faster, the little pictures. So that's why it slows down. This morning, I watched that arrow just right-handed turn. I'm like, that deer's going to move. And it was only 27 yards. But I'm watching it.
Oh, that's interesting.
But when I'm shooting targets, I'm just like, whatever. And
I don't seem to think that. No.
Really?
No.
I always think it takes forever to get to the animal.
No. I'm trying to think of when do things slow down for me? No.
Jiu-Jitsu?
No. Jiu-Jitsu just, when you're really in a good state, it's just almost like you're not thinking. It's like all of a sudden you have an arm bar. It's like,
so it is a flow state.
Yeah,
just
it's a complete flow state. But it's a flow state that's established after, thousands of hours of drilling. And that's the most important thing in jiu-jitsu really is drilling. Everybody loves to roll because it's so fun.
Sure.
Because it's like you're playing a video game. You're like trying to kill each other. But the really important thing is drilling, and drilling with like a certain amount of rigor, like a certain amount of speed and intensity. You're not trying to hurt each other, but you're drilling with like intention so that your body is completely accustomed to these movements. Like your body recognizes these movements, and like you slap that elbow, grab that armpit, get that arm drag, and you get the choke. It's almost like it happens before you even know it's happening because your brain is so it's just wired in there. Your whole nervous system knows exactly what to do.
It's like a cascading effect, like an if-then kind of deal. Now,
Like,
is that super slow drilling and then you just go to speed?
No, I think the correct way to drill is you drill with a little resistance from your partner. Like you don't want to put your partner to go limp on you.
Sure.
But just a slight amount of like you have good partners, a slight amount of resistance, but then go through those motions with like a little bit of speed, but not like full blast.
Sure.
But the whole idea is just get those numbers in. Bam, bam, bam. Eddie Bravo has the best explanation for this. He says, when you tie your shoe, you don't think about tying your shoe. You just go bing, and your shoe just ties. Yep. Right? Because you tie your shoes every fucking day.
Right.
You know exactly how to tie your shoes. Once you learn how to tie your shoes, just bing. Yep. He goes, that's what a jiu-jitsu move is.
That's terrifying.
It's like it just gets in there, and sometimes you don't know it's happening until it's happened. Like all of a sudden you have a triangle. Like, whoa. Like shit.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah, it's just you've done it so many times that when someone overextends or when someone gives up their neck, or it just cinches up. It's just one of those things where your whole nervous system is just pre-programmed to these very specific movements.
Yeah, so you've taken all these little closed skills, which are replicatable, and then put them in an open format where, like the if-then scenario, like the flow chart just goes, boom, go, 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 no, go.
And the best guys are the guys that drill constantly and then also study and take notes. Like Gordon Ryan, that's his belt up there.
Oh, that's dope.
Gordon trains 365 days a year. 365 days a year. and
So it's
he doesn't
breathing
take
for
any
him.
days off. He doesn't, and he trains all fucking day long. So if you want to beat him, good luck, because you have to catch those numbers. You have to bypass those numbers somehow. It's not like he's not talented. It's not like he's not intelligent. It's not like he's not physically strong. So he's got all those attributes already.
Right.
And then you have this insane work ethic along with dedication to technique.
Yes.
Which is-
and you'd have years or decades to catch up.
Exactly.
And you just can't.
And so there's too many guys in jiu-jitsu that were just like big muscle heads that would just like muscle a move and just give a lot of grunt. And you're never going to beat a technique guy who's just as strong as you.
Right.
If
that uses less percentage of their power and everything to get the same job done.
also knows exactly where to be. Like you might not know exactly where to be because you've gotten away with a lot of stuff because you're big. You know, because you're big and you're strong and you've pushed through stuff like big guys on their back. Like there's a lot of big guys, they get on their back and they become turtles. They don't know what to do because they never get put on their back.
Sure.
Because they're training. If you're a guy who's 250 pounds and you're in a normal jiu-jitsu gym, what are the odds there's another 250-pound guy there? Most guys are 190, 200, maybe there's a 210.
Right.
There's not a lot of really
But a
big
6'3",
guys.
250 just ain't happening.
It's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. So you usually can push these guys onto their back, and that's easier to do. So you probably do that more often, and you like smashing people, so you smash all these people. But the problem is then you never develop a bottom game. You never develop a guard. You never develop ability to get out from under a big guy and do it technically. You know,
Sure.
get that underhook, like, you know, go work for a deep half, like figure a way to get back up to your feet. You're just always used to like overpowering people, and then when someone's bigger than you, you're fucked.
Way.
You're fucked.
So were you always strong? Like,
Well, I was always strong,
I mean,
but
like
I didn't
lifted
really
weights
start
and
lifting
strong, like-
weights
okay.
until I got into jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
I mean, I always lifted a little bit of weights. I always
Sure.
worked out a little bit, but I was more into kickboxing than anything.
Sure.
But when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I was like, oh, being strong is like a big advantage.
Yeah.
It's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I was watching this video where these guys were talking about this, these wrestlers, and they were saying that wrestling has always acknowledged that power is really important. But for some reason, jiu-jitsu, they would like to pretend that it's not important, that
Interesting.
technique is everything.
was it cultural from where it was? Like
Well,
with the
I-
Gracies and with like,
I
is
think
that a thing?
technique is more important, right? Because if a guy doesn't have technique and he has strength and you have technique, you can beat him.
But you can't discount really effing strong.
Right. But you
Like, that
also
solves a
can't
lot of stuff.
discount a guy who's really fucking strong with technique. And
Yeah.
they're not mutually exclusive.
No.
Like a lot of guys who are really fucking strong also know how to grapple. And that's
Sure.
a giant problem.
Now, is there, like in the throws world, we always talk about like technique, speed is everything.
Explain to people what you're talking about
Okay,
when
so
you say
throws.
throwers
So
world.
like, yeah, so I'm one of those nerdy guys that picked the sport that's like the least paying sport of all time. So I was a hammer thrower. So it's like a shot put, steel ball, 16-pound steel ball on a 1 meter, 3 foot long wire. It's what you see on the Olympics. They spin around really
Yeah.
fast and yell and scream and always make like the highlight reels of guys that scream.
Where did that come from? Was that a weapon at one point in
Yeah,
time?
yeah. So they actually in Scotland they would use, it was a hammer. They would literally have like for agrarian society, and they have a cylindrical head on it, so they could use it every side, and so that became a way to train for battle because the Scottish weren't allowed to have weapons. Oh. Yeah, so they would start throwing stones
After
and
the Braveheart days?
yeah, or during those days. So they weren't supposed to have weapons. So they're like, F this, we're just going to take all the stuff we have and stay strong, stay ready. And then actually their stone was called the clacknart, which meant stone of strength.
What a great name.
It's a wonderful name.
That's a Viking name if I ever heard one.
Viking.
Clacknart.
So tell me how badass this is. So like each family, like the Rogan family, like you're the patriarch, right? You'd have your clacknart up on the mantle or whatever it is. So at your family outings, whatever outings those may be, all the men, very much like in Braveheart, they would go and throw it. The guy who throws the clacknart, the family stone the furthest, is kind of like the dude. Like he's like, all right, now my son has surpassed me. He's shown he's a man now.
Right.
Here's the wildest part. This gives me chills. So they would, if they went off to battle, they would take their clacknart, their stone, and on the way out of town, they would all put it in a pile, and this is called a cairn or a carn. So they would put it in a pile. So if they did not return to battle, they had placed their own monument to their town of their sacrifice.
Whoa.
So could you imagine? So when you go past these old towns and there's a pile, you're like, a lot of guys didn't come home.
And those piles are still there?
When I was in Scotland, they did say a lot of them are still there. I was competing when I did Highland games, Scottish Highland games. And it's wild. So, like, you think about it, you're like, man, you're literally kind of placing your family's stone of, like, I'm going off, and if I don't show up, like...
Dude, I was in Scotland last year, and there was...
What part of Scotland were you in?
God, I wish I could remember. I'm not exact.
Up in the Highlands, like all the rural stuff?
Something or another.
Aberdeen?
I went with some friends, and they took us to this place that my friend owns a property out there.
Naturally.
And when we went there was a stone circle that is way older than Stonehenge.
No way.
Yeah, and it's just sitting there.
So, a lot of stuff in Scotland's just sitting there.
It's just sitting there in front of this dude's house, and you can go and stand on it. I was like, this is crazy. And it's got like a little monument on it, but no one's stopping you from like walking around on it. And they're not big stones. They're like small stones. But this stone, they're like, I'm like, who made this? I was asking the guy that we were with. He's pretty knowledgeable. And he's like, no one knows. Wow. It's just left laying around.
Yeah, so like Scotland, there you go.
Is that it? No, that's not it. But it's kind of like that. It wasn't nearly as high. They were smaller standing stones. And it was, and there's a bunch of them like laying around. Like there's a guide stone on the ground. I'm like, how old is that?
Wow.
Like that's probably like thousands of years old.
Wow.
But nobody knows. Like they don't know who made the stone, who put it there. It's just a guide stone. Like so, if you were on a trail through the Scottish Highlands, you would find these rocks. We're on the right place, lad. And this is fucking stone that's been there for 3,000 years or whatever. Like they don't even know how old it is, and it's just sitting
Isn't that
there.
so cool though?
But the crazy thing was like across the street from this guy's house. So he's got like this normal house, and there's a little street, and then across the street from his house is this stone circle that's like who knows how fucking old. Nope, it's not that either.
Yeah, they have like the other stones of strength there. The
They have a
Inver
few
stone.
of them that are older than Stonehenge in Scotland, because all three of these I pulled up.
God
said they
damn.
are.
How
Maybe
weird.
you were
Look
just
at
really
that.
high. Maybe you were in actually England.
Oh, I was totally sober. Look at that image right there. How weird is that one?
Cool.
The Ring of Brodger. How do you say that? Brodger?
They have some sweet names over there too.
Brodger. The Ring of Brodger. Like, what did they do in that ring? How many goats died in that ring?
A lot of fights.
How many fucking people got sacrificed in that ring? I mean, thousands and thousands of years ago.
So cool. The stones over there, like a lot of people go over, a lot of strongmen, they'll do like the stone tour. So they'll lift the Denny stones and the Inver stone. And the Inver stone, I lift that. That was in a old lady's garden.
Right? There's like a stone
It's like a 200,
it's
like a 265 pound, like big egg stone. And like
it's just laying around?
It's literally in this lady's garden. It's called the Inver stone.
And people go there?
People go there. And
Ma'am, can I go lift your
so
rock?
it's 100% what happens.
Really?
Yeah, we were over there competing. The U.S. team, we were over there, and like all the Highland game guys were like, "Let's go check this out." And we all lifted it, and she invited us in for tea. She's like, "Well, we'll come and sign the book." And you look in the book, it's like Bill Kazmaier was here, so and so was here. You're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like the greatest strongmen in the world had come as a pilgrimage to lift this stone, and then they signed the book, and you're like,
So weird.
"This is awesome." And then across the street,
There it is.
Yeah, there, yeah. And then
How do you say that word?
we call it the Inver stone.
Inver called stone.
Yeah.
It seems like it's almost been like honed.
Well, that's
Doesn't it seem like it was polished to that size?
chipped.
There you go. That one's outside.
Oh, that one actually has numbers on
Yeah,
it.
that's the one I lifted.
It says 265 pounds. Is that what it says?
Yeah, and so we lifted it, and then actually, so what happened after back in the '80s when Kazmaier was coming on the scene? You know, Bill Kazmaier, obviously, world's strongest man, kind of started the stage. He allegedly picked it up. You know, it was the man thing. If you could pick it up, he picked it up and carried it across the street and bellied it up to the bar and laid it onto the bar and had a beer.
Jesus. I would be mad if that was my bar. Like,
Right?
bro,
Oh,
you
he
just
chipped the
fucked up my
crap out of the bar. It did. I was there. I was like, damn, that's where Bill chipped it. This is badass. I'm a historian. I like that stuff. Right? So we traveled all around, lifted all the stones. It was cool. But anyway, a thrower is a person who decides to do a sport that doesn't pay a lot. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a shot put, discus, hammer, javelin. It was all those original Olympic sports that were all weapons. And so
that'd be a good sport if you're a trans woman. To get into.
you would
dominate.
if
The regular chicks wouldn't have a chance.
I'm at 48 years old. I could still throw the living crap out of a woman's implement if I wanted to. It'd have been a great move. But yeah, I was a part of the track and field. I got into it in college, kind of a weird Forrest Gump-like story, and it changed the course of my life.
Have you done lift, run, shoot yet with Cam?
I haven't done it with Cam. No, we played around and done some stuff like that at my farm. During
You should
different
do
events.
his podcast, the Live Run Shoot show.
That'd be great.
But it
Heck
makes
yeah.
you carry a rock up the fucking mountain.
I went up Pisgah with him. I haven't carried the rock, and but I'm sure you've done
It's like
Pisgah.
the cam rock.
That's
I
insane.
haven't done Pisgah. I'm not doing that. Fuck out of here.
That was rough.
Yeah.
That was rough. I started running. I'm not a big cardio guy.
Not interested in going anywhere where that guy's running.
Dude, he is as advertised as a badass. Like,
Oh, he's
he
a
is
complete psychopath.
Legit.
He's one of my best friends. He's a complete psychopath.
We all got running, and then he kind of left me, and then like he got to the top and then did his dance, and then he came back down and like, hey man, and it was very remarkable. Like he goes, all right, why do I do this all the time? He goes, if we crested this corner right now and you saw the biggest bull of your life at 70 yards, could you make the shot? I'm like, bro, I'm looking out of my ear hole right now. Like, I'm screwed. He goes, that's why I do this every day. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
He's also addicted to exercise. He's addicted to cardio.
Yeah.
I think
me not
there's
so much.
a state of mind that a lot of those distance runners get in that they get really, really addicted to. And there's a runner's high, like the runner's
you experienced
euphoria.
that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, long cardio sessions. Yeah.
I never have. I've tried it, then I just
Really?
either get bored or mad at cardio. Then I go and lift weights and throw
Well,
things.
you've got like that power strength throwing background. You know, it's like it doesn't really benefit you to be really into cardio.
Yeah.
It actually probably would diminish some of your strength.
Like heavily. Yeah, Greg
Yeah.
Glassman back in 07 when I was throwing Highland games, he was like, oh, you got to do cardio or do CrossFit. And I was like, why? And he was like, no, it'll help your throwing. I go,
Oh, the CrossFit guy?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
doesn't look like he works out at all?
that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not taking advice from you, buddy.
Well, I was sitting there and I was like, I'm 265 pounds. He's like, you should do CrossFit. And I'm like, I'm trying to be the best thrower in the world, and that has nothing to do with any of this other stuff.
yeah, I have a golden rule when it comes to taking advice. I don't take advice from anybody who looks like shit.
That's sound. That's sound advice.
If you look like shit, I'm not taking advice. I know he had like some physical problems, right?
Yeah,
Something's
but-
wrong with him or something.
But the bottom line is unknown and unknowable was not my sport. My sport was extremely known and extremely knowable. I know the Olympic trials are on this day, and I need to show up and
Yeah.
go really far.
And also, if you want to be a power lifter or if you want to do some just completely power focused exercise,
Correct.
it does not benefit you to spend time getting in like extreme cardiovascular shape like you do need to do what the kind of running that Cam does.
Yeah, and then it's not even not beneficial. It's detrimental.
Right.
I mean, we would joke, like, why run when you could walk? Why walk when you could sit down? And why sit down when you could lay down? Like, as throwers, that was what we would do. And we would lay down every chance and eat every chance you get. And then
Right.
we're like, I'm going to stand up and do something really hard and fast for 3 seconds.
Right.
And then I'm going to go rest for a while.
Yeah.
Call me when I'm back up.
Yeah, I mean, there's
fun.
different things have different requirements. But if you want to be a mountain elk hunter, what he does is very beneficial. I just
Extremely.
can't run. I have a bad left knee that's been really bothering me the last few years.
Yeah.
And I just twisted it again this September.
Yeah,
elk
you were saying
hunting.
your sciatica was a little tweaked up.
That was another problem. That was from
getting old, Joe.
overuse of no, it's just being stupid. That's overuse of archery. So I
What?
was because I have two bows. I have a bow that's 84 pounds and a bow that's 90 pounds. So I'm pulling these 90-pound bows 100 times a day.
Are you shooting
every
that
day?
many times a day?
Oh yeah.
Good for you.
Oh yeah. Oh, you have to. For that moment when like a fucking giant bull walks in between the trees and you have a 70-yard shot, you have to 100% be confident that you can make that shot. And so I'm shooting at 84 yards over and over and over and over and I'm obsessive. But the problem was I developed like tendonitis in my lower back. So it's overuse from the stabilizing, from like holding yourself. So it's
Really?
the pulling. Well, I'm sure that's it, but it's also holding it right there in that
Sure.
position, and it's all in my right lower back. But it's much, much better now. I started doing this thing called New Fit.
Okay.
Talked about it the other day with Derek, where they're doing electrical muscular stimulation while you go through exercises. It's really helpful.
Really?
Yeah, it's been 3
It's like
weeks.
a microcurrent or more like a
It juices you up, like it's all the muscles
like,
contract.
like stem kind of thing.
Yeah, but
Tens.
it's very strong. So this is, and you can crank up the intensity. So this is some of the shit. Like if you
Okay.
saw Mike Tyson when he was training for Jake Paul, he was doing
Yeah.
that. Like what I think it's really good for. I don't know if it's good for a lot of these things, but it's really good for rehabilitation.
Sure.
For rehabilitation, I think there's tremendous benefits to it. And I bet there's some benefits for athletes for working on specific things and doing it while you're getting juiced up. But man, for me, it's helped me quite a bit. Pretty quickly too, like 3 weeks later.
Was it on that specific spot, or are they firing something else to balance it out?
No, they're firing a lot of different parts of your back. So it's like both sides of my back, my obliques, my core, and just going through a bunch of rotational exercises and a bunch of different things to strengthen lower back. And just, you're getting a lot of blood flow through there and stretching it. And I was getting pain and I was like, shut up, pussy. And I would just ignore the pain, and then it just got bad.
Yeah.
It got bad to the point where my hips were getting kind of numb. And when I was hiking up hills, like in October, when I was hunting in October, it was bothering me a lot. I was like, okay, I've got to really do something about this.
Yeah, because you could be, talk yourself in or out of something really hard. But if it's something that's just going to be chronic, you're like, well, I'm screwing myself.
I was turning it chronic.
Yeah.
But it's a lot better now.
Good.
It's a lot better now. And it's only been 3 weeks.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. My knee is still fucked, but not totally. It's
What's the
mostly
knee from?
soft tissue. I twisted it. I twisted it crossing like slippery ground in September, and I've had a lot of problems with it. I've had 2 knee surgeries. I had my ACL reconstructed. I had a meniscus piece removed, and then when I was skiing, the last time I skied, last and final time I ever ski. This lady didn't know how to ski, and she slid into the trail, and I had to try to not hit her rather, and I wiped out, and I got what's called the insufficiency fracture. So it's the bone fractured at the top of my shin, my fibula, or my tibia rather, right where the cartilage is. And so, that created quite a bit of pain. And then I twisted it again one time when I was about to get on stage.
It's hard when to play
At
off.
Stubbs. I was going to Stubbs, which is like this outside concert venue, and I was looking at my phone to turn my voice recorder on so I could record. And as I was doing that, I twisted my knee on this concrete step, just yanked the shit out of it to the point where my leg was shaking where I was on stage because I was in pain. It looked like I was super nervous, but it was really just pain.
Because I think at this point you get super nervous on stage when you're talking. Right?
No, once I'm up there, I'm not nervous at all.
Do you still get nervous beforehand?
I get excited.
Yes.
I think anything you do that you really care about, you should get excited. Yeah.
I used to call it my national leg when I would go to national championships in the hammer. All year I'd be fine. And when I would wind the hammer on the first one, when I took the hammer back, my right leg would bounce. And I'm like, there it is. It was one throw a year, and it was like, here we go.
Oh, wow.
We're back.
Yeah, it's that adrenaline.
Oh, it was adrenaline. Because you're physically, you're peaking for it. You're like, this is the day I have to compete. You remember how it was.
Yeah.
But you're like, this is the day. And everything else is kind of work. And then you're like, I'm cashing out today. I get to cash out today. I get to and then it's like, oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Doing exciting things is really fun. And
man.
it's so important for you to grow as a human. Do something that scares the shit out of you. Do something that excites you. Do something that's difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost, I don't know, sometimes it's good when it's a more dynamic where you don't know when it's going to happen, but looking forward to something is pretty badass too, because then you could start focusing training and focusing efforts and then going through like almost stages of guilt, but stages of excitement. And you're like, okay, am I excited? No, I got this one. Just go back and forth.
Yeah.
Let's go. It's live.
Yeah, that's what it is with everything. I mean, I think it's these processes of recognizing there's a goal, working towards it, solving problems, working hard, pushing yourself through discipline. And that's how you grow. And it's like that. That's how everything grows, right? This is how your mind grows. This is how your body grows. This is how your life grows. Like you have to do stuff that's hard. And then you get better at doing stuff that's hard. And that's how you get better.
Yeah. And then you level up and you're in this next wilderness. You're like, all right, well, what's the next thing?
But when that alarm clock goes off, it's so hard to know that. You know all these things, but the force of the bed, the gravity of that warm bed.
Oh, it's cold in the room.
Oh, especially shout out to people who live in Alaska.
Oh,
when they have to get out of bed,
dude.
Fuck.
I'm sure you've done some hunts where you're in a tent or something that, and then you're like, I know I really want to get out there, but oh my, this you're like my boots are frozen. And like, maybe that bull will just kind of walk more this way.
First hunt I ever did was with Steve Rennell in Montana.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that.
It was,
That was a good
9
episode.
degrees. 9 degrees in the morning. We're just like, Jesus Christ, this is so cold.
That was the hunt that started it all for you, wasn't it?
Yes.
Little
yeah.
forky kind of buck from
That's
what I
him right
remember.
there.
No, okay.
That's the buck.
Oh no way.
Yeah, that's the first buck I ever shot.
That's awesome.
That's him. Yeah.
The buck that launched 1,000 hunting careers.
Well, it was a life-changing experience. But, you
Yeah, I
know, one of
remember
those
that.
things where, you know, you realize, like, wow, where would we be without houses? And it was only, by the way,
good way
it
to
was
put it.
only, I think, October. It was October of 2012. I'm pretty sure it was October. And it was already 9 degrees in Montana. Like, what was it like in February for these poor fucks? What's January like in the morning? And you're in a tent?
Bro.
Fuck.
Well, it's like Josh Smith up there at MKC has talked about. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, everyone loves Yellowstone. Y'all about to find out. In February, he's like, everyone wants to move here. He goes, stick around.
Yeah.
It's going to get live here in about January or February.
How many people got super confused by that show and bought a house there? And they're like, what is this? Why is the ground solid?
Exactly. Oh, I love it. He's like, this is fantastic.
Especially someone who's never lived in the real north before. You don't know what happens when your ground freezes. The ground is a piece of rock. Like, so if
And
you
your
fall
food
on it,
freezes.
it's a
You're
rock.
like,
Everything freezes. Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole different animal.
It's a different way to live, that's for sure. But, you know, I was talking with this gentleman yesterday, Rick Strassman,
Oh,
who's
cool.
a scientist. But we were talking about the time where he was living in Alaska, and he lived in Southern California, and then he moved to Fairbanks, where it's 39 degrees below zero. Oh. And he's like, what the hell? And then it's dark for like 10 hours.
Everyone's depressed. And they have the vitamin D
Or
lights.
it's not dark for 10 hours, rather. It's only light for 4 hours. It's
Right.
light for 4 hours, so it's dark for 20 hours. Yeah, fuck that.
Have you've been to Alaska a
yeah.
lot, I would think. You like it?
Sometimes. I like the people up there. They're hardy. They're
That's a good way to put
different
it.
kind of human.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at a
Battle tested.
They are, and everyone wears extra tough boots.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught outside with some fucking bullshit flip flops.
Yeah, and if your boots are too clean, you get made fun of openly. They're like,
Right.
"Hey, nice new extra toughs."
Like,
Cool.
you know, you're friends with Tyler from Archery
Yeah.
Country. Tyler's always walking around everywhere with flip flops.
Bro, that guy hunted yesterday in shorts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he's a different
he
kind
killed a
of dude.
deer in shorts.
If you're in Alaska and you have flip flops, you're gonna die. Your feet are
True.
gonna freeze off. You're gonna have no feet.
Yeah.
Like, you need
Yeah.
boots.
I was out at a bar out there. We were in Homer, Alaska, and we were playing pool and jacking around.
Where's
over there.
Homer?
Homer is they have this big spit that comes out. I don't know. It's in Alaska somewhere.
How far up there?
far?
It's all far.
Alaska's big, man. I don't know.
When you see how big it is and you
Yeah.
lay it over the country,
Jamie,
you
where's
realize
Homer?
how much we stole from
There it
the
is.
Russians.
Of course you'd have that.
There
Yeah,
it is.
there it is. So we were, yeah.
God damn, Alaska's big.
It's so cool, isn't it? So we were on that like big spit. So we were on that bay, which is crazy. And yeah, so we were down there. And we were at a bar goofing around. And I remember I walked into the bathroom and I was like, I just kind of noticed, I was like, wow, there's no mirror on the wall, whatever. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And one of the guys was like, yeah, there's no mirrors in the bathrooms in Alaska because it doesn't matter what you look like. You better just be capable or you're going to die. And I was like, what a cool place. Like, he's just like, no one cares what you look like here. Everyone's hair is all froed out and they're dirty and oily and greasy. He's like, yeah, that's the flex here if you can make it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was like, oh, what a cool. But yeah, we were sitting in that bay, looking across the bay with a pair of spotters and looking at tracks and seeing animals across the bay like 19 miles away. It was crazy on that white snow. It was wild. I never thought you could see that far with a spotting scope.
No kidding. How much magnification is spotting?
90?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, some monsters. But
big
still,
old
it was like,
Swarovskis.
yeah, big
Yeah.
swirl that you could see, you know, all of Elon's stuff up in space with probably.
Imagine those poor fools that had to hunt with traditional bows, no binos, no spotting scopes.
Dude, did
No,
anything
no
got
wind
killed?
checker, no
No app.
rangefinder,
Didn't have the
no
app.
apps. I have apps. I have everything.
Oh, yeah.
I have a rangefinder that syncs up with my app.
Of course you do.
Man, I haven't even set it up yet. But
Do you
it's,
nerd out on all that stuff like I do?
I do. See, here's the problem. I have a loopholed rangefinder. I really like loophold's full draw.
Yep.
The
Used it
reason
this
why I
morning.
like it is because it'll show you the arc of your arrow.
Yes, that
So this is
little
how
line.
nerdy it is, folks. So my arrows go 294 feet per second.
Okay. How
And
heavy?
These are 475 grains, and you calculate all this stuff. You put all this stuff into the rangefinder, and the rangefinder knows exactly how heavy your arrow is, exactly what the peak of it's going to be as it comes off your bow, how fast it's going, and it gives you a line. So
Yes.
that line. So if I'm shooting through a gap in some trees, and I actually did this a couple years
Did
ago.
you?
I actually did it when I had a Garmin rangefinder, right? So the Garmin is a range-finding sight, which is pretty badass.
I've always wanted to play with one
It
of
kept
those.
fucking up though,
Yeah.
and apparently they're getting better. But
Electronics.
they fucked me a couple times, and it would fuck me on my range. Like I'd be at full draw on my range, and I know it's 84 yards, and I press the button, and I'm not getting a range, and I press the button again, and I'm not. So you would press the button, and it would give you a red dot.
Right.
When it works, it's the greatest thing of all time because
Sure.
it's like a pistol. Like you see
Yep.
that red dot, that
Yep.
clear lens, and then that dot. It's the best sight picture of
Sure.
all time. Of all time.
Yeah.
Everything else, like the post or the
In the
side
way,
post,
yep.
they get a little in the way, just a touch. Not bad. I can deal with it, you know. But that red dot was fucking amazing. So I shot this. I'll show you the bull afterwards. I shot this big bull, and he was coming through this gap, and I wasn't sure if the arrow was going to make it there. So I pulled out the second rangefinder, and I clicked on that, and I got the height of the arrow. I knew I could make it, and then I used the range-finding sight. So
A man that knows his tools.
the opposite of these guys with their traditional bow, poink.
Yeah.
Like
Nice.
I'm using technology.
Sure.
So the new loophole, though, the problem is it doesn't have this height thing in it. But the new one, when you range an animal with Onyx Hunt, so
Yep.
you range the animal and it puts a pin down where that animal is.
Yep. I actually had I was one of the test subjects for that. They sent
Oh.
me, probably 2 years ago, I was hunting at Deseret with it, giving them feedback. We found a mule deer the day before, and I ranged him, marked him, and we went back the next day, and I shot him at 14 yards.
That's crazy.
It was awesome.
That's crazy because you can go back to the actual spot where he was.
Yep. Yeah, it threw it off to my phone, and is like I can't remember what it's called. It's the range, but it has like the LF
Something 500.
500, yeah, something like that.
See if you can find it, Jamie.
Yeah,
It's pretty dope.
It's super cool.
I love loopholed shit. I just wish
They're
their
awesome.
glass was as good as Swarovski's.
Yeah.
Everybody, I say that about everybody. Like Vortex makes awesome binos. For the money, you can't beat them. Especially their HDX series, those the really high end ones. Those
Sure.
are fucking great. Until you put it through the pick up
Swaros
those NL
Pro.
Pures, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, you're like, yeah.
It's almost like I wish I never looked through them.
Oh, it's
That's it.
yeah, that's it
The
right there.
RX 5000.
yeah, that thing is badass.
It's pretty dope. So it syncs up with your Onyx Hunt. So you could
Yep.
show you how it works there. So what's really good about that is not just you know where you hit where the
Yep.
animal is. So if you have to go around somewhere and get back to him, you'll be able to get
Right.
back to if you're trying to get away from the wind.
Well, the spot and stalk is so nice because we were hunting mule deer in Arizona, and same thing. You're circling around, and your depth of perception. I've been 200 yards off.
I feel like this is more designed though for the rifle hunter, and this is like they're even showing guys like going 2,000 yards with this thing. I feel like for the bow hunter, they just need to add maybe it'll just make it too big, but add that height of arrow technology. I don't know why they wouldn't put that in there.
Yeah.
Because I can't use it. I need that. That is so huge
That is
for elk
big.
hunting.
Yeah.
For me, it's like gaps or everything. I want to be able to be sneaky and just make my way around a tree. Just give me this. Give me
Yep.
this much, and if I know that the
Yep.
arrow's never going to hit the top or the bottom,
Done.
I'm golden, and I have
There.
full confidence. Because otherwise, it's a mind fuck. Because I'm sure you've had arrows hit branches before.
Oh, yeah.
It sucks so hard when
Yeah.
you whack.
Yeah. They get landed in Cleveland somewhere.
A few years back in Utah,
Here's their ones for that one I had
Yeah.
pulled up had a
I was using
TBR
the
was made for ballistics.
4,
and
I
stuff.
think, this
Yeah.
morning.
These are all for archery.
Yeah.
yes, the TBRs to the right.
Yep.
That is that one is a similar one. That was like, I don't think that's as sophisticated though, and I don't think that has the app I think the RX one is the only one in the app, but I have that one, the full draw 5. I don't go anywhere without that. It's the shit. That is to me. I've had a bunch of different ones that were really cool. Like Aaron Snyder turned me on to this Nikon a while back that was image stabilizing. That was a game changer. That's a big deal because you could really like get
the
it right
rangefinder
on the animal. Yeah,
Okay.
image stabilizing rangefinder.
Yeah. I use image stabilizing binoculars. Have you used those SIG ones?
I've used cams. I tried
Dude,
that.
those things.
Pretty dope.
I'm running 16s.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, right, because you could just hold them with
Because you
16s
just
and
hold.
press that
I mean,
button.
I've run Swaros since 1999. And I started leaving mine at home because I like the SIG so much. And they did the new HD, so it has a better glass. Now, it's still not as clear as Swaros. I mean, that's just – but because you could stabilize, I could run 16s. And I'll run 16s in the woods because I could just peer through everything and like, boom.
I ran 12s in the woods this year, which is a little too much.
When you're not
hand
stabilized.
holding.
Yeah.
I usually run 10s, but I like sometimes
10x42s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're looking at something that's really far off, you're like, I don't know if that's a good bull. Is that worth chasing?
Yeah.
The 12s
Yeah.
make all the difference in the world. But what I do is I grab my baseball hat. I learned this trick from Remy Warren.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So what you do is you
Remy's a killing son of a gun.
he's a killing son of a month. You clamp that sucker down tight so your hat's on tight, and then I'll
Smart.
do this, and I'll hold my binos right here. Or take my bow and put it here, and then stack it on top of the bow. Press the bow up against your chest so it's not going to go anywhere, and then stack it on top of the cam of the bow. A lot of guys do that.
Sure.
But Remy taught me this one, and I think this one's super legit. Just hold on to your
Super fast,
hat.
too. Yeah.
And you can tuck your elbows in like this, and you can really keep it stable. If I couldn't do that, I wouldn't use 12s, but I don't think I'm going to use 12s anymore anyway.
Really?
No, I think 10s are the way to go. And maybe even 8s because you get a bigger field of view.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I'm seeing stuff through trees and I'm sneaking around. Like I like to, I'm a big spot and stalk guy.
Sure.
I've tried a bunch of different hunting. I've tried ground blind. I tree stand hunted with Dudley.
Yep.
That, you can go fuck yourself with that. Sitting in those trees all day, fuck that. I am way too ADHD for that.
You'll
if I
find
didn't have
out
a
if you're
phone,
crazy.
Oh, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely crazy.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like being up there in a tree like that.
Here's my question, though. I was just in Missouri. I went to our farm. I was there 6 or 7 days, and we sit, 30 minutes before to 30 minutes all day.
Yeah, you have to.
But I would think with as many people as popping on you and all this, like it was nice because for me, I'm like, I'm quiet. I could just be. Yeah. I enjoy that part where I could just unravel and think through problems. But yes, you go crazy and then you burn out your phone because you're like, and I'm going to search for the dumbest things possible.
I'm going to buy socks.
100%.
You're just sitting. Also, you don't realize, like, if it's 30 degrees out, like 30 degrees is no big deal.
Yeah.
You can walk around 30 degrees. But as soon as you're sitting there,
dude,
in 30 degrees, you get so fucking cold.
So
You're not moving, so you're not generating any heat at all.
Yeah.
So then you're in this stupid body warmer suit that zips up.
Yeah. You're
It's
like in a big Snuggie.
It's a big old oven, and my hands are in here. But the problem with that is if a deer comes in, you got to
all
you
the
got to
stuff.
make all that noise. You got to get out of it, all this movement, grab your bow.
Yeah.
So you really shouldn't do that. So you try to go with a puffy, but you're still freezing. So then I started doing Bruce Lee exercises while I'm up there and fucking. One thing I realized, I was so cold, I had a hard time pulling my bow back once.
Yeah.
I was going to shoot this deer, and I was up in
up
that
there in
stand for
Iowa?
like 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, in Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
And I go to pull that bow back. I'm like, Jesus.
Well, because you shoot a 90-pound bow.
Yeah, but I was so cold.
Part of it. Yeah. Oh no. I'll sit there and just do like, like
I had a 95-pound bow for a while.
I remember when he made you that one.
I couldn't draw it on my knees. I had to stand up. You know how I found that out?
Because you couldn't.
Because I was on my knees right behind a bush, and an elk walked behind me. I'm like, fuck. God damn it.
You're like, this is super
And I was
helpful.
in a weird spot, too, where I could only lean on my left leg, too. Like, so it was, it was like I was on my knee, but I was even on my left knee. It was like a fucked up
Right,
hill.
you don't have a good.
Yeah, I was like, my right knee was up like this, my left knee was down there. I was like, this is bullshit. That bow was crazy.
I remember
it would
you
shoot
texted me.
540 grain arrows, 305 feet per second. Bro. When it hits, it was just like, whop! It was like, I remember we were shooting at the Deseret, and we were all shooting at 100 yards, just me and a couple of these guys.
Yeah.
And they shot first, and then I shot. and the guys go, "What the fuck are you shooting?" Because the bow was
the
so
KE
flat.
was still rolling at that point.
He goes, "That bow is so flat. What is that?" And I'm like, "This is a 95-pound bow." It was the dumbest thing ever.
I remember you sending me. He was like, "This thing's
It
preposterous."
was so dumb. It also had a really short brace height, so it was super sketchy. So if you moved your hand, it was so unforgiving that if you moved your hand even slightly, you were off target by 6 inches.
Oh, geez,
It
yeah,
was
just
really twitchy.
driving a little Tokyo
Yeah.
Drifter around all the
It
time.
was so dangerous. Not dangerous, really, but like you just wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust it. You know, I
Yeah.
killed a couple animals with it, and then I stopped trusting.
Yeah, and you get to put it on the wall and go like.
Well, then I went to an 80-pound bow from Hoyt, and I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. It was like 15, 20% more accurate. I was like,
Yeah.
that thing is just too
yeah,
sketchy.
I just got that RX-9 like last week.
Oh, that's a great bow.
Yeah, I'm shooting 76, but I'm 30 and a half inches, so I got a pretty good stroke on it.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah,
I'm
I
shooting
need some extra horsepower at 28 and a quarter. I need
Yeah.
like,
I'm shooting 520 grain at about 282. So it's moving out.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's the like guys like Randy Ulmer. He likes 265 to 280.
Yeah.
He thinks that like that's
Kinda-
the range where the
I've read that.
arrows are like the most accurate. There's this thing about having too much fucking whip.
Yep.
You know, there's too much, and it's almost
You
like
get too much flex on the
there's
arrow.
a lot of flex in the
Yep.
arrows, and it's probably more subject to wind drift when they're flexing like that. You know,
It's like when we used to throw the javelin, there was different rated javelins, and you could be too strong for the jab. And so if you don't pull through the tip perfectly, just like arrow spine.
right.
And so
spine
you'd have a
arrow.
50
Yeah.
meter jab, 60 meter jab, 70 meter. And when you start getting strong, you could bend a 50 meter jab like a banana. It's kind of fun, actually. And it comes out like, whoa, 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 like Lamar from, like what was it, Revenge of the Nerds?
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
That makes sense. That it would be just like arrows.
Yep.
Because
But you
for
got
folks at home, say if you have a 50-pound bow, you could probably get away with a 320 green arrow,
yeah.
330, 350. So the higher the number, the more flexible the spine of the arrow is, and the
Sure.
lighter the arrow will be.
Right.
So I shoot a 250. So it's
Oh, wow.
I like a nice stiff because
You're
of all
shooting
that
a pull
kinetic
cue.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're
Especially how much weight you have in the front creates
Exactly.
that more of a flex. too.
Exactly, but it's to me, it's all about like I've heard arguments before. Like people say, "Oh, you don't need that much bow power. You don't." Shut your fucking dirty little skinny mouth. Because the only reason why you would say that is because you can't pull that back. That's
Yes.
the only reason. And if you think that 70 pounds to you is the same as 70 pounds to me, and you don't work out, that's just dumb. That doesn't make any
It's
sense.
just, yeah, it's like saying, well, you don't need a 500-pound deadlift to lift. Yeah, but it's nice.
Yeah, but if you can't squat 500 pounds and you have to squat 500 pounds, you can't do it. I can. So shut the fuck
Yeah,
up.
it's nice to have in your pocket.
Shut your dirty little skinny hole.
yeah.
Because all that is you're just saying there's virtue in being physically weak, and that's stupid. That's stupid. Do you need to be able to pull back 80 pounds to kill an elk? No. If you can't pull back 80 pounds and you're really accurate with 60 pounds and you have a cut-on contact broadhead, you can be successful. But I'm going through that whole animal.
Yeah.
I'm getting a pass through on a giant animal, and you're probably not gonna.
Yeah.
And I think it's more important to be able to have the most ultimately lethal setup possible. I learned this from Cam.
Yes.
He's my mentor.
Yep.
He's the guy who taught me how to bow hunt, and his whole thing is he shoots a 90-pound bow as well. It's like the most amount of power, and you want to make a big fucking hole.
Yes.
And you want that animal to die like
Yeah.
that.
Well, with anything, why would more horsepower, if you could handle it, not be advantageous?
It's stupid. That's why race cars have limits on the amount of power you can have, because
Yeah.
it's more advantage. If the Formula One drivers figured out a way to get a 4,000 horsepower engine and have it handle, they would win.
They would win.
They would
right.
win.
Like,
It's better.
or if you could punch 30% harder than everyone else in UFC,
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, literally, that's how
You'll make a lot of
Francis
money.
Ngannou became the heavyweight champion of the world. Fuck, it hits harder than anybody.
Yeah, it's interesting. My buddy Lauren Landau, strength coach, and I was talking to him last week, and he did actually a study on ground force power into punching, and they tested it on like a force plate, jump and force plate. And then they did a Proteus machine. Have you ever seen one of those? They kind of it's like you kind of throw it and push it, kind of the same thing. So they tested the power of the punch, then tested ground force, and then they did squats, but they also did like a trap bar deadlift. And then the training was a jammer arm, like jammer arm punch. So they had the sequence of force. And he had a double-digit increase of strength through or power through the ground, and it equated to a 12% increase in punching power. So almost percent for percent. So you look at that and say, well, if you're stronger, you squat more or deadlift more. Now, as long as it doesn't take away from the sport, but that has a very, very real effect on punching power.
Yeah, it does. The way it takes away from the sport is, if you're sore from lifting weights, you're not going to train as effectively. That's just a fact. Like,
yes. Or it takes too much time away from your technique or injury or whatever.
That's where steroids come in. And that's why Gordon Ryan can train 365 days a year. He's open about it. Like, he's open about his use. Yeah. Because they don't test for steroids in jiu-jitsu. So, he's a wizard. So he's like a pragmatist.
I figure that they would.
Nope.
UFC, they do, right?
The UFC, they do.
Yeah.
But you ever seen Gordon? You ever seen him with his shirt off?
Oh, yeah. It's
that motherfucker, he ain't passing no tests.
Yeah.
Give me one of them photos of Gordon looking like a Greek god.
He's squared away.
Yeah. I mean, when you have that, and then you have a genius level IQ, and then on top of that, fuck out of here.
It's pretty typical.
This big shit-eating grin on his face. And then you have a guy who trains 365 days a year who also works on technique constantly. That's how you have the greatest of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by the way, all those guys like Galval, the guy who's on the bottom there, he's on the juice too. It's a level playing field. They're all juiced up.
Right. It was kind of like the lifters and the throwers of the 80s. Everyone had a 600-pound bench because that's what you do. And guess what? You got a test now.
Well, this is a great argument to this idea of power being necessary, like with jiu-jitsu and grappling. Like if you have technique like Gordon's and you're built like him, giant advantage. Giant advantage to be super strong always. In all of life. There's fucking zero advantage in being weak.
No, there's never a time you're like, you know what, if I could just get my squat down a bit, that would really pan out for me.
One thing, though, that is really important, this actually really pays off. If you can train with a guy who's small, like if you can learn jiu-jitsu with a guy who's small, you'll learn the best jiu-jitsu.
Why is that?
Because they have to use technique. They have to use leverage. Like, you're a big fucking strong guy. If you learn jiu-jitsu, you could use that strength. You could squish people's necks and throw them on the ground and grab their arms and stuff like that. But a small guy can never do that. Yeah. So if you can learn jiu-jitsu from like a Barrett Yoshida or a Hoyler Gracie or Eddie Bravo, or there's a few of those, Gabe Tuttle, who teaches over here at 10th Planet. Small guy jiu-jitsu is the best jiu-jitsu because it has to be razor sharp because they don't have the physical strength to like overpower an arm and get you into a certain position just from raw horsepower. They have to like sneak it in there with leverage, and they have to do everything perfectly. So those guys, if you learn jiu-jitsu from them, you're going to learn like the most technical jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Is that like obviously a reason why you should learn younger when you're small and weak?
Well, it's always good to learn young because, first of all, it becomes a natural part of your movement. Like, it's like as your body matures, your body's – I think it's more important with striking than anything. It's very rare that someone learns how to strike while they're already physically mature and can ever reach the level of like a Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
Because that guy, as he was a child, his body, his reflexes developed striking.
Yep.
And he's just got this massive encyclopedia of information that's available to him. He knows exactly when he sees you do this, he knows that straight left is coming, and he knows all he has to do is do this, and he knows the counter's going to be there when you go to look for the right hand afterwards. Yeah. He's just got it all programmed. It's all just like right in there. For you to build that up after you're 28, like, you're never going to be at his level. You're not. You kind of have to, unless you're some physical freak, which they do exist.
Yeah, but what I've understood too is the potential for building speed, which is, let's be honest, speed is a big part of power, which is punching. Right, it's the sequence of force. How do you create force through the ground, explosion of force, not implosion into your arm or your foot or whatever it is? That ends at 22. That the potential to develop the potential for speed ends at 22. Yeah, that's why all the weightlifters and everyone, gymnasts, everyone has to start young. Because
so
those firing patterns.
27 and you try, you
won't reach the potential you could have genetically because you just don't have the sequence, the speed, right? It's the I know how to do this at speed that goes whack, whack, whack through here, and I could
Yeah.
crack that whip.
Yeah.
Your body just it's done too many other things at lower
Right.
speed. And so,
You know where I really noticed that? With kicking.
Hmm.
And when I teach people kicking, there's certain things that they have a really hard time doing fluidly. Mm-hmm.
Sequence of force.
The big ones is like anything that requires spinning. Like if you look at a good MMA fighter that doesn't have like a Taekwondo background and you teach them how to throw a wheel kick, they'll never be able to throw a wheel kick like a real Taekwondo black belt. There's certain guys that, like, as they're young, they're
Yes.
developing these spinning techniques, and
Yep.
they just got it wired in. Their
Yep.
whole nervous system
Yep.
and it's so smooth and fluid that the power is so extraordinary. And, I've taught people that were, like, elite MMA fighters, and I try to teach them how to throw things like a spinning back kick, for instance. And it takes a long time for them. Even, like, John Jones is one that he landed, like,
Oh, it was nasty.
on Stipe. That guy's a freak. Like that guy is like what we were talking about. Like you can, there's some guys you can teach them things when they're in their 30s and they can develop it like as someone who's been doing it their whole life. But that's a rare exception. Another rare exception I was thinking was Alex Pereira. Alex didn't really start striking until he was like 21 years old. He didn't even start training.
But my question would be, what other things did he do that exaggerate, like that developed that speed and power sequence? Because, like,
You know what he did? He worked in a tire shop.
really,
Yeah, so he's like hoisting tires and hammering
Yep.
tires down and setting wheels.
right? So you're learning to do the most, because if you're doing it for a job, you're going to do the most efficient method possible to move an object, right?
Well, you're
to,
also
to
gonna
whip that tire up there.
Develop rotational strength.
Right.
You're throwing hammers down. I mean, he's doing this 8 hours a day, all day long. So, like, think about
And
how many
sequencing.
tires he's hammered, right?
Yeah, that's not a training
Francis
thing for him anymore.
Ngannou, when he was a child, worked in a sand mine. So he's fucking digging sand
Yep.
all the time. And he just, his body's just, as he's
How
developing. I'm also massive physical specimen,
Yeah.
right? So he's like 6'6" or 6'5", whatever he is. 265 natural. Built like a fucking Greek god, like a statue. And his whole body's developing as he's a young man, digging sand. And the anger you have. Like, I can't believe I have to dig this fucking
Could you
sand.
imagine? It's like the Wheel of Pain, like
Yeah,
Conan's
it
just
is like
walking.
Conan.
Yeah.
He really is like a guy from a movie in a sand, and then becomes the
Right.
heavyweight champion of the world. Was homeless.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, his. You ever heard his story?
Oh
about-
yeah, so a buddy of mine, Bo Sandoval, used to run the strength conditioning direct. He was a strength conditioning director at UFC, and so he told me about it years and years. He's like, "We got this guy," and I was like, "Really?" He goes, "No, this is going to be a dude." And I was like, "Really?" And he told me his whole story about Cameroon and like living
Yeah.
in France and the whole deal. And I became like, I never even looked eyes on the guy. I was like, "This guy's he's my guy. I want to like him."
Oh, he
and then he
told the
came
whole
on the scene. We're
story.
like, "Oosh."
His life story he told on the podcast about making his trek. Like he just decided he has to leave Cameroon, and everybody's like, "What are you gonna do? You can't
Right.
go anywhere." And he just went through the fucking desert,
Yeah.
all the way to
Yeah.
Morocco, and then gets in a raft and does it 7 different times. He gets arrested, gets taken into custody. They bring him into the middle of the desert, drop him off. He goes right back to Morocco, walks through, hitches ride. Took him a year and a half.
If he makes, I don't care how much money that guy makes, it's not enough for just
Yeah.
being able to do that. Like, that is so
How about he
cool.
has one boxing fight? He knocks down the heavyweight champion of the world and one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. He hits him with a left hook and drops him, and almost won. Like, I thought he won the decision. It was over. I was like, they're going to give it to him. I think he won the decision. He was battering him in the 8th round. He dropped him in the 2nd. I'm like, I think he won. And a lot of people thought he won.
Yeah.
And he came that close.
Yeah.
That fucking close.
And so is that like, obviously genetically super gifted, right?
Yeah.
But then also, like we're talking about, like shoveling and doing all this work. When you do that work for that long, you learn how to become efficient because you don't want to spend extra time and effort doing stuff. So you just learn how to kind of move stuff.
There's a little bit of that, and I think to be really charitable, I think Tyson Fury probably didn't think that he had a chance. I think Tyson Fury probably didn't train as hard as he would have trained if he thought that Francis was a real threat.
Right.
I think he probably thought, I'm going to box this guy's fucking face off. How could this MMA fighter? And then he gets hit with one of them hammers.
Yeah.
Thud.
Then he's the
He
Terminator.
gets left
and you're
hooked in the side of his head. He's like, what the fuck did this guy just hit me with? And he's on his ass as the heavyweight champion of the world, fighting a guy with 0 professional fights. That was his first ever pro fight, his second ever pro round, and he drops one of the greatest heavyweights in the history of the game. I think here's my Mount Rushmore of heavyweight boxers. Mike Tyson's number 1. Mike Tyson from 1986 to like 1990, there was not, or 88, whatever it was. There was a few years before the wheels came off because he was just going crazy and partying and fighting with syphilis and shit. He was a maniac. But that guy, the guy who knocked out like Michael Spinks, the guy who knocked out Larry Holmes, the guy who won the title from Trevor Berbick, I think that guy's the greatest heavyweight fighter of all time. He was a juggernaut, man. The guy who knocked out Marvis Frazier, that's the scariest version of Tyson ever, the Marvis Frazier version. But you could also,
you were like probably late high school, like so I was like a little kid, and I remember like walking out with my skateboard, and they're like, "Did you see the Larry Holmes fight last night?" I was like, "Oh no." But I heard it was like 19 seconds or whatever it was.
It was crazy.
We were just all pumped about
the
it.
Larry
But you
Holmes fight went a
understood
few rounds.
differently than I did as a kid.
Yeah, well, I was doing a little boxing myself, and I was a giant boxing fan. He was a freak. He was a very unusual thing because every other heavyweight was kind of slow, and even if they could hit hard, they were lumbering. Yeah, he was bobbing and weaving and moving, and he was a small heavyweight. Wasn't even 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So he's built like a brick shit house. He's got a 20-inch neck. He's
so cool.
220 pounds, moves like a guy who's 150, and he's throwing lightning bolts at your central nervous system. Just blang. He's hitting you to the body, and your fucking legs are shutting off. He was a monster. I just think you can't maintain that forever. Yeah. And I think I always, when I look at fighters, I try to look at them like when they were white hot, just burning hot at the highest level that they could achieve. What was that like? Like, what was that? Yeah. I feel like as great as Muhammad Ali was, man, I just don't see him surviving.
Not at the height.
No. I see like Henry Cooper dropped Ali when he was Cassius Clay with a left hook, and they cheated to get him out of the round. Cus D'Amato cut his gloves. So they had to take his glove off and replace the gloves. They gave him all this recovery time. You ever seen that Henry Cooper fight? Henry Cooper was a bad man. He was this British boxer, this guy from England who had a nasty left hook, and he caught Cassius Clay just bap, perfect one in his like leg, and he's like slumps down to the ropes. He was Dunsville, but it was at the end of the round, and then Angelo Dundee. I mean, that guy had been around the block.
He knows some stuff.
Let's cut these fucking gloves. See if you can find that, Jamie, because it's a crazy fork in the road in history.
Right.
Because if they don't cheat, likely he gets stopped. Likely Henry Cooper, who landed the perfect left hook, hits him with a couple more, and that's it. He's done.
Right.
He looks done already. Like, watch this. Henry Cooper had a nasty left hook. Look at that, bro.
Yikes.
Look how he's down there.
Yeah,
that's not regular down. That's fucked up down. That's like real trouble. But it's the very end of the round. Look at this, bro. But look how he goes down. That's Dunsville. So if that's a minute earlier, if he gets hit with that, the whole thing changes.
Right.
The whole thing changes. He's not undefeated when he fights Sonny Liston. He's not this unstoppable force.
Isn't that crazy? How
Crazy.
Those little...
And that can happen.
Yeah.
And there are fighters that I have seen in the UFC that I go, this guy could be the next fill in the blank. This guy could be the next great welterweight champion, the next great lightweight champion. And then they have one fight. And in one fight, something happens. They get hit with a flying knee, or they get head kicked, or something happens.
Yep.
And then their whole path changes. And you're like, wow, that guy wasn't overmatched, if he didn't fight that guy. So this is the difference between boxing and the UFC. The UFC is like, when you're ready, come to us, and you're going to fight the best.
Wow.
Boxing is like, we're going to build you. We're going to take you, and you're going to fight a few guys that are like real slick, but they don't have power, and then you're going to fight a big guy with a lot of power, but he doesn't have any endurance.
Orchestrated.
Yeah, and they're like, he's ready for this now. You know, if you have a really good trainer like Tyson Fury's trainer, Sugar Hill, he's gonna he's analyzing your movements. He's breaking down things. He's figuring out what to change, what not to change, when to back you off at training. Like you're a little too hot right now.
Interesting.
Let's not peak too soon because we got 2 weeks before the fight.
Sure.
I want you to take a day off. Like, take a day off. I'm ready to fucking eat nails. Like, no. We gotta. They know exactly, and then they're like, he's ready for this level of competition. So they'll give you a guy that'll offer you some struggles, some tests. Maybe he's got a big punch, and you might lose the fight, but you're most likely gonna win. And this is how you find out if a guy's gonna make it.
Right.
You slowly move him. So there's a lot of boxers. By the time they're fighting for the title, they're 14-0, 16-0, 18-0.
Right.
Charles Oliveira. I mean, what is Charles Oliveira's record? Let's see Charles Oliveira's record. So Charles Oliveira, when he became the lightweight champion, he had a ton of losses in the UFC.
Really?
He got stopped by Paul Felder. He got stopped by Cub Swanson KO'd him. He got, I'm pretty sure Jim Miller knee-barred him. So what is his record?
Well, Jim's a freak, huh?
Look at that, 35-10.
Oy.
Okay? And so out of those 10, a few of them have been recently. Scroll back up to the top, please. So the Islam Makhachev, he loses the title, and then Arman Sarukian, he loses a split decision. I thought he won that fight, by the way. But it was close. So those are the 2 out of those 10. So that means as a champion, he had 8 fucking losses. 8 losses, and some of them brutal knockouts. Because you're in there with the lions, with all the lions.
Yep.
And so the UFC is like, who's the baddest lion? Let's figure it out.
Right.
Like, you want to be in the UFC, you win a few fights, we're going to throw you in. Or if it's, last short notice, notice fight.
Let's go.
And the thing you find out, too, is that the level at the UFC, as great as some of these guys look in these other organizations, the level at the UFC, that's the peak. Those are the greatest fighters on the planet. There's no arguing about it. And we found out about that this past weekend because Alexandre Pantoja, who might be the best pound-for-pound fighter alive. He's the flyweight champion. He fought this dude, Kai Asakura from Japan, who's a fucking assassin. But Pantoja just ate him alive. I mean, he got caught with a couple good shots, too, a couple good knees to the body. And, Kai Asakura is a really good fighter, but the level was just different. Like, Pantoja he strangled him. But it's just the way he did it. I mean, he was fucking him up on the feet. He was fucking him up everywhere. He was just pushing him in this, insane pace. You watch those little guys fight. Like, they fight like pit bulls, man.
Yeah.
Just wild scrambles where they're moving so fast. You're trying to call the fight. And it's like, me and Daniel were talking about it during the commentary. Like, we have to recalibrate our brains.
Yeah.
Because you will go from a heavyweight fight to a flyweight fight.
Right.
Like, whoa.
It's like listening to a podcast when you turn it to 1.5.
Yeah.
I actually had to start listening to your podcast at regular speed because I thought you talked really fast. I was just like, oh, Joe, no one talks that fast because I listen to it super fast.
Somebody sent me a clip of some political person talking about one of the guests on the show, and I was like, what is wrong with the clip? And then I had to realize, they got it on speeded up version.
Yeah, do you listen to stuff speeded up?
Never.
A buddy of mine taught me that. He listens to books. He got up to 4x. And so he
but
just
are you
downloads.
absorbing it the same way?
I think if you're kind of like Rain Man, which I'm not.
I'm not.
But I could go 1.5 pretty easy, and I could just get through it faster.
Yeah, I see how that could help, but for me, I'm not reading the books on tape or listening to books on tape for anything other than my own enjoyment and education. So for me, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I like to think about the things, and I'll have more time to think about what this person's saying if they're not going at 1.5 speed. Because if they're going at 1.5 speed and going one concept to the next, then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't understand what you.
Sure.
Then I have to back up.
Yeah.
I like to think about stuff. So it's like, especially if I'm listening to something esoteric or really weird.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is a lot of the stuff that I listen. If I'm not listening to fiction, I'm probably listening to a book on physics or something.
Yeah. I listen to Jack Carr stuff at regular speed because I really just enjoy the books.
Oh, that guy. What is his name? Who's the guy who does his?
By
Guy's really good.
Yeah, I can't remember. But he has a lot of good dialects and everything.
Yeah.
Jack texted me this morning. He said hi.
He's the man.
He's awesome.
I love that dude. See, we are cross tomahawks on the wall.
Oh, for sure. I love it. Yeah, he's like, hey, tell Joe I said hi.
I love that dude.
Yeah,
he's salt of the earth.
Yeah,
Such
we just
a
got
good
him some
person.
CMBs.
Ray Porter.
With the,
Ray Porter. That's it.
Ray Porter.
I knew it was a Ray
with the cross
something.
tomahawks on there.
He's the fucking man. And the thing about his books on tape, though, is you're locked into Ray Porter forever. Some new person starts reading.
You're screwed.
You're like, who is this guy? This is bullshit.
Yeah.
You can't have this guy doing it.
The guy's amazing.
I'm used to all the voices.
I love Rafe is a
Yeah,
good
the South,
voice.
he's got a South African
yeah,
accent.
No, it's
You know who else is really good? Who's the guy who does the Gray Man series? There's a guy who does. You ever listen to the Gray
I
Man
haven't.
series? I'm so addicted.
Really?
Mark Graney writes them. They're so ultra violent. They're so fucking crazy. They're so crazy. It's about a CIA hitman.
Oh,
It was
wow.
like a singleton guy. They send all around. Dude, it's so like they made a movie about
Is that
it.
like one of the weird ones that'll give you like you'll think about it all night? Kind of like
Oh, yeah.
When I would
There's
start
some-
watching The Sopranos, like my view on the world would change.
Jay Snyder. That guy's
Okay.
really good. He does really good girl voices too, which is weird. But those fucking books, man, they are so ultra violent. They're so
Really?
crazy. They're so crazy. Like sometimes I listen to them and I have to shut them off before I go to bed. Like
Yeah.
if I listen to them, like I like to take the sauna before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm listening to like a book on cosmology, that's great. It's interesting. Well,
Yeah,
go to
you're
bed and
like,
think about
that's
space.
kinda cool.
But if I'm listening to some Gray Man before I go to bed, I'm like I gotta shut this off.
Yeah, we don't need that.
You know.
We don't need that in the house.
Yeah, people getting their fucking eyeballs, like a giant sword shoved through their eyeballs, getting blown up, grenades in their mouth. Like, hey,
Hey, yeah.
Hey. hey.
Do you like scroll around? I know you're not supposed to look at your phone before you go to bed. I always just I like look up ballistics. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, it's like kind
Well,
of
that's good. That's not social media. That's good.
Well, I do it because I actually get to think about stuff, and it doesn't matter. I have to look at something that doesn't matter. Like if I look at
Right.
don't check an email. Like
Right,
you're
right,
screwed,
right.
right? Like, and I'll tell my wife. She's like, "Hey, I got a question for you." She's like, "The lights are off. Don't ask questions right now." Like I'll
Yeah.
be all
Yeah.
night. I'll be thinking of this problem I have to solve.
Yeah.
So like I'll just sit there. I'm like, "Hey, I wonder what the ballistic coefficient of a 350 Remington Magnum is."
By the way, anybody with a beard like yours, I would assume they know the ballistic coefficient of a 357 It's like, I see a dude with a beard like that, and he's kind of jacked. I'm like, that guy knows how to shoot some things. 100%.
And I'm just like, "Oh yeah, so you would be
Probably
about
loads his own bullets.
yeah, it'd be about a 9-inch drop at 300. Interesting. Okay, I'll keep that in mind."
Yeah, you probably load your own rounds.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah, I bet you do. I get on them presses.
Pops used to be really, really into that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I know the guys at Nostler, so they just send me ammo, which is nice.
I've made the mistake of looking at social media before I go to bed, and I get mad, or I get upset, or I get sad, or
Yeah.
I find out some weird shit that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I'd read things that people would say about me, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, like who's this asshole? That's not true." And you get all upset, and then I realized, like, wait, this is just some person. Like I wouldn't talk to them in real life. Like, what do I get? Why is their opinion more valid because it's written down? So then I stopped reading all comments about me, and oh my god, it changed everything. Changed everything.
You do the post and ghost, right?
Yes, it's the way to go. Like, I have friends, and they'll come to me, like they'll come to the comedy club or something, and they'll be like genuinely emotionally distraught because people are attacking them online. I go, but they're not here. Like right here,
Right,
your
yeah.
friends are here, and you're all freaked out because I know I got to stop reading that stuff. I go, you got to stop reading that stuff. First of all, it's not true. You're really funny. You're a great guy.
Right.
So it's all bullshit, and they don't know you.
Right.
So they're just deciding to do this, and they know that it fucks with you because you talk openly about it, and so now they're going to accentuate it. They're going to keep jabbing at you. They got a rock. There's a window.
Yeah, they're in the cheap. They're in the
Yay!
cheap seats. We're
Yeah.
whipping them in there.
You got to stop doing that, man. And a few guys have listened to me, and a few guys haven't. And the guys who have listened to me, they all say the same thing. Like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, social media is not the problem. The problem is either engaging in the anger and the hate, or reading people's anger and hate towards you and having it fuck your head up. Like, hey.
Do you think it's something that's like systemic that is literally spreading and growing. Like the people that put that type of trash out all the time, and then they think there's some sort of value to that, and then other people see it.
There is some
and then,
value, right? They do get engagement, right? And if you're a person that has like a YouTube show where all you do is shit on people, you have bad karma for sure. You're suffering.
Yeah, but you got to deal with that the rest of your life, like dealing that
right,
poison.
But you can make a living doing that. Like there are guys who make a living doing that. They're all fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's value in it. But I do think you make something out. You can create a career doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the problem, is that it's effective.
Right, like trolls. Like
trolls
and
it does get engagement.
Sure.
But then what kind of engagement are you getting? Look, I have people that hate me online, but not the ones who know me.
Right.
That's what's kind of important.
Yeah.
It's like the people that know me either in real life or through the podcast know I'm a nice person.
Right.
I work really hard at it. I try hard to be a nice person.
Yes.
It's not like it's a conscious effort. I'm good at it. I like doing it. I like nice people. I like
Makes
to be
you
a nice
feel good,
person.
right?
It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So I don't engage. I don't fire back at people.
Yeah.
I don't, when people get mad at me, even celebrities have attacked me online, I'm like, eh.
Yeah. How's that feel? Like, probably being in that world a bit more, and then now having people turn on you probably feels strange. Perfect.
They're just revealing who they are. They're just weak. They're just weak people. They're not the type of person that if you did that in front of me when you were around me, we could have a conversation about why I feel like you're incorrect. And this assumption that you have of me is totally wrong. And also, if you're not talking to someone in person and you're saying something about that person, like you could just kind of like form some bullshit narrative.
Of course.
The person's right there. They'll go, that's not true. No, so you're saying something, and if it was true, then you'd be justified in your anger. But what you're saying is not true, and you're taking things completely out of context, and you don't know what you're talking about, and you're doing this because your life sucks. And it's the only time you do it. I've always said, do you think Michael Jordan is posting on YouTube? Is he making comments? No. When he was if YouTube was around when Michael Jordan was the king, would he be doing that? No. He doesn't have time because he's being a winner.
Because he's actually winning and doing,
but
100%.
Guarantee you, Michael Jordan reads the comments, and if he did read the comments, he would be up all night, anger. Like you saw that Neil Brennan had a bit about Michael Jordan's documentary on his last Netflix special. It's pretty funny. It's like, unless you want to be the greatest basketball player of all time, he goes, don't hold grudges unless you want to have $150 million worth of passive income every year because it's a fucking silhouette of you dunking. Unless.
It's a good unless.
But again, those are freaks, right?
Yep.
These are the outliers.
Yep.
These are the people, like, as a rule, as a human being, that's not the way to go.
Just insatiable desire to, like, just hammer that nail until it's just so far down in the woods, you're just like, I don't know what you're doing anymore, but
that's how you become the greatest of all time.
You
right?
leave no question.
It's just the difference between that in sport versus that in fighting, though, is in fighting I don't think you can maintain it.
No.
Like a guy like Jordan, how long was he in his prime? It was a decade, right?
At least, yeah.
For a decade, he was dominating in basketball.
Wild.
You can't really do that in fighting. John Jones is the only one who's been able to do it.
Do you think it just takes so much aggression, so much
damage,
so much damage
to your body? The damage to your body is huge because there's so much damage that happens just in training.
Sure.
I mean, John tore his pec off of his fucking shoulder in training.
And that wasn't getting hit. That was
wrestling.
Yeah.
And then there's the impacts that you get, and then there's the back stuff. You get thrown weird. You land on your back weird. You're throwing someone.
Sure.
A knee hits you weird. Your ribs break all the time. Hands break all the time. Like common gym injuries. Knee blows out. Noses. Everybody's got a broken nose. I don't know anybody who does any kind of combat sports that hasn't broken their nose. So there's after a while, you can't breathe out of your nose. Your nose is destroyed. Your fucking hand hurts when you try to open your car door.
Yeah.
And you have to punch people in the head with it. Your knee hurts going downstairs. Kamaru Usman, you want to hear something crazy? When he walks, he has to walk backwards downstairs because his knees are so bad.
Oh, because he can't get the knee over the toe.
His knee hurts so bad, and he was a welterweight champion of the world with those knees, and he was talking about it openly. He was like, "I don't, you can know my knees are bad. I'm still gonna fuck you up." And he did. He fucked everybody up forever.
It's coming.
Until Leon Edwards. But his knees are so bad that he would have to walk on the grass where everybody was like walking on the sidewalk.
Oh, wow.
He'd have to go over to walk on the grass because just to take a little bit of relief.
Extra cushion.
Just something. Jeez. Yeah. Bone on bone, man. Yeah. Bone on bone.
Yeah. Well, it looks just
like
the operators, like, guys are jumping out of.
Oh, yeah.
Like all of them are jacked up.
All of
and
them.
Everyone in the strength world, everyone's low back, everyone's shoulder, everyone's knee.
Everyone in Jiu-Jitsu. Everyone's got a back problem. Everyone's got a neck problem.
It's just part of it.
Everyone blows a knee out.
It's part of it.
Yeah. And if, Eddie always used to say, look, you're going to have to get surgery eventually. You're going to have to get surgery. Just get the surgery, heal up, come back. You're not going to stop doing it.
Are we rebuilding this engine and keep it racing, or is this like doing as least as you can to not get surgery?
My second surgery, I went to this doctor, and when I had a bucket handle meniscus tear, so it would lock. You ever have one of those where it locks out? It was fucking brutal. And he was like, you've got to stop doing martial arts. I go, shut the fuck up. I go, you don't know what you're talking about.
This?
I go, fix this. He was like, when you're older. I'm like, yeah, when I'm older. Like right now I'm 30 years old. Fix my fucking knee. I got to go strangle people. What are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Stop doing this. I'm not going to stop doing this.
Same thing. I was 22 when I had that, and I had an Olympic trial in 2 years. I was
too much fun.
I was fix it. And before I went under, I was like, I've squatted this much and I do this. When I come out of it, I expect to be back there. So fix it like that. Don't fix it like I'm an old guy taking her easy and like I'm young. I got shit to do.
Do they fix it differently depending on like who you are?
I don't know. I just felt better about saying it.
I tell you what, they got a lot better.
I would assume they would actually fix you. Maybe they wouldn't fix normal people.
I tell everybody, if you have an opportunity to get a ACL reconstruction, please at least try the cadaver graft. I know a lot of people want to do that patella tendon graft because you don't have the risk of rejection. I don't know anybody who's had a rejection from the cadaver. I do know people who have pushed it too hard, too early, and then reblown it. Because you know how it works? Do you know what happens?
I'm not familiar.
It's really kind of interesting. You get this. So my right knee, when I blew my ACL out, they take a cadaver. Like I have a dead dude's Achilles tendon, which is much thicker. I don't know his name. I hope it was a guy like Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this is some stud.
Just fucking animal. Just giant Viking dude. So it's thicker than it's 150% stronger than a real ACL. And so they screw that in place, and then it's not like you have this dead guy's thing in there forever. What happens is your body reproliferates. It acts as a scaffolding. So it can feel like it's secure, but it's really vulnerable. So you have to be super careful up until like that 6-month mark when it should be reproliferated.
And so does the foreign tissue eventually just kind of get reabsorbed, which is kind of weird?
Exactly. You eat that dead guy's Achilles with your knee.
my knee is just munching these dead dudes.
But man, I've had no problems with this knee.
Awesome.
This right knee is amazing. The left knee, I had a patella tendon graft, and because I had that one done in 93 or 94. And that one, back then, that's the only way they did it. But it was really good. But it took a long time to heal. Like, it was a long time before I could kneel down on the ground. Like, if I had to kneel down and put my knees on the ground. Because they take a piece of bone out of your shin, and they take a piece of bone out of your kneecap, and then they take a slice out of your patella tendon. They pull that off, and they open you up like a fish, and they fucking drill it into your shin bone and drill it into your fibula.
Love that.
Your tibia and your femur, rather.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Wrap it over.
They get it in there, and then...
drill.
It's like a year before it feels like you could do anything with it. It took a while before I felt like I really trusted it. But I do have to say I was not as diligent with my rehabilitation back then as I was when I got this one done. With this one, I rehabbed it all myself. I went to like 1 or 2 of these things. I'm like, they're just showing me things I already know how to do. I'm like, I know what to do. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do it all day. So I was doing bodyweight squats like all day long. Yeah. And I got it to
blood.
6 months later, I was training again, full blast, no problems.
Were you doing any like the BPCs or any of the peptides?
There was nothing available back then.
Oh, well, back then.
So this was 2003
that
I got this one done.
Nice.
And this was the patella tendon, or this was the cadaver, rather.
How do you think the recovery would have worked for us, like with all these dings and injuries? Because I've had I'm sure you probably have too, a couple of friends that got surgery that actually the doctor hit them site injection and even IV with BPC 157 during the reattachment of a pec or a bicep or something.
Super legit. It's super legit, along with TB 500.
Yeah.
Apparently, that combination of those two together
like the
is
Wolverine,
the most
right?
effective. Yeah. Super effective.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of people that resist that for some strange reason.
Why?
I don't know. I think there's a bit of ego involved in not knowing something when you're an expert. I find that with there's a real problem with, unfortunately, some orthopedic surgeons. Aaron Rodgers was explaining this to me, that his doctors were telling him not to do stem cells after he got his Achilles fixed. He's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, shut the fuck up. And so, of course, he did stem cells. And, of course, he went to Ways to Well. And, of course, he was back 3 months earlier than they thought he could ever be.
Yeah.
And, there was like some real thought at the end of that season that he was probably going to be able to play.
Yeah.
Where everybody's like, this is nuts. Like, nobody recovers from this that fast. But he was very smart, and he didn't push it too far.
Yep.
And he waited until
Actually
it's
follow
fully,
Brigham and all this stuff.
But yeah, stem cells work. There's a reason why you have to go down to Tijuana to get the good ones, because they fucking work. And
Like anything that works is like you're not allowed to do it anymore.
Biden, it is
Really
fucking
really
the
helped us
steroid
out
thing
on
in
that.
'91. That cocksucker, he really did.
I was talking to a strength conditioning professional the other day at the administrative level, and we were just talking about different things going on. I said, I said, I said, there's people, in my opinion, in your world that don't know about BPC 157. He didn't know about BPC, and I'm just like,
Crazy.
and I'm like, okay, I was taking it 8 years ago.
Well, you know what it is, though? It's like they don't continue to learn.
That
they
was
get
my
their
point.
degree, and then they're in practice all day. They're constantly working on people.
Yep.
People are coming in the door. Oh, this guy blew his ankle out. This guy's got a fucking blown shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and I said the weird part is you have a strength conditioning professional, and in some ways there's more information cutting edge on a podcast from guys that are interested in training,
Right.
than there are from like the and I'm just like, hey guys, just open the scope a little bit, like.
Well, there's enough of
maybe
these
okay to
guys
listen.
that are super smart and also jacked, like these Andrew Huberman guys.
Yeah.
And super smart guys that are in
Yes.
the bodybuilding world.
Sure.
Super smart guys like Derek from More Plates, More
Yeah.
Dates. He's the best example because he's just a fucking encyclopedia of data and studies and efficacy and what how you combine things together. And he actually runs a clinic, so he really knows what he's doing.
Right, so you get the boots on the ground, you see it in real time.
Yeah.
My doc is Eric Serrano. I don't know if you know Doc Serrano. He's up in Columbus, but everyone has gone to him over the last 30 years. But he's one of those dudes that has like a basement
Columbus,
gym.
Ohio?
Columbus, Ohio.
Oh,
yeah,
that's where Louie was.
Exactly. He was Louie's doctor. So yeah, he was Louie's. He was, you go through all professional baseball. It's like, okay, got it, tracking.
He's one of the rare guys that we went to him to do a podcast.
How was that?
Oh, it was awesome.
Did you go to Bob Evans with him?
No, we hung out in his gym.
Yeah.
And he just was introducing me to a bunch of freaks and showing me all the stuff that he invented and why he invented it.
So cool.
Louie Simmons, he was the fucking man. He was
Louie
so
was
funny.
awesome.
He was so funny. He was such a character. He was telling me about how he got his shoulder blown, got his shoulder replaced, and then immediately when he got back to the gym, they made him max out and bench. And I was like, "What are you talking about? You need to recover." It's like they were like, "Don't be a pussy.
Yeah.
You have to max out."
Yeah. I was there in 2002, and so Louie and his wife Doris, and you always meet the Bob Evans in the morning, and he would eat and like do the whole deal. And he was telling me a story about how he got pissed off, and he could something to his cell phone, and he threw it out the window while he was driving. And then so he didn't have a cell phone for a couple of weeks. And then he got to the gym and he missed a lift, and he punched his own tooth out, punched himself so hard he knocked his own tooth out, and then took a wire brush that you like clean the chalk out of a barbell and smashed himself on the head. And he was just pouring. His wife was like, "Yeah, Lou was pouring blood, and he knocked a tooth out." And I'm just thinking, Westside was awesome. Like, holy crap. So I got talking to him, and he was
Dude
like,
had no biceps.
yeah, right, because he blew him out.
I just never got it fixed.
Yeah, a lot of those guys, same, yeah, it's wild. But he was like, yeah, those cats they'd fight, and he goes, we would literally, like, there's some tuned up dudes in there. And he said that we would just literally kick them out the door. If they were fighting on the floor, we would kick them out of the way so they were out of the way of the monolift so we could keep squatting. Like every 30 seconds you're up or 90 seconds, whatever. It's like, I don't care if you're fighting, literally, hitting each other with stuff. Move the next guy up. I'm like, this place is wild.
They created some fucking animals.
Here's a wild story. So we were there, and this drunk chick came in. She was like, because this was the old West Side. It was like in this little shopping center where the windows were all blacked out and everything. It was pretty dope. And this drunk chick walked in. She's like, "Hi, y'all working out in here?" And she was tuned, man. She was like all sloppy, like legit street person, right? And I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna go bad." Like, I'm just reading the room, right? Like, there's it was not a lot of estrogen in that room, right? So I'm like, "Oh man, this is gonna be bad." Louie's like, "Hey, come here." So he puts a weight vest on her. And then puts a second weight vest, so 25, it's a 50-pound weight vest, and takes her outside, wraps a belt around her waist with a sled, and had her walking, doing sled pulls back and forth with 50 pounds of weight vest on her shoulders.
Drunk
as shit. And I'm just like watching. I'm like, what? She comes back in. He's like, all right, come over here. He puts her on the monolift, 2 red bands. It was maybe just the bar. Wasn't a lot of weight on there. And had her doing speed box squats, 8 sets of 2 for speed, and was teaching her how to box squat. She finally stumbles out and just leaves. And like later on, I'm like, Lou, did you know that girl? He goes, no. I'm like, she was just some random street person and you had her squatting? He goes, shit, half the people in this room were that person a year ago. I'm like, oh, he goes, she could be world champion. You never know.
Wow.
And I was just like, that's
what a crazy mentality.
That stuck with me for so long. He's like, most of these people are broken and they have some addictive thing and something. And he goes, if they could channel it into something, that might be the next world champion.
Wow.
And I don't know if you ever saw her again. Or if I was just there that one day, and it stuck with me for 22 years. And I just thought about that. I'm like, he put his money where his mouth was. He was a coach, and he wanted to see what could someone do.
You know, that's so
cool.
interesting because one of the guys who trained with Louie was Matt the Immortal Brown. Matt the Immortal Brown, I know he did some training with him. And I've always said that there's something about guys that used to be addicts that have like died, and Matt died. And there's been a few guys that I know like that came back from that. They were the scariest fucking people because they had crossed over and then they realized there's a good addiction. The good addiction is to training. Just be completely addicted to training. And so those are some of the fucking scariest dudes.
It was wild. I mean, I knew a lot of those guys from that world, and a lot of them are addicted to different stuff. And unfortunately, they get into training, and then if they get out of it, that addiction might come back.
That happens with fighters when they retire, and then also they're generally dealing with some issues mentally from impacts, and so a lot of those guys start drinking, they start doing coke.
I always loved how Louie just saw it differently, and my dad was the same way. Like, he used to always say, look for something not of what it is, but what it can be. And that meant human potential, that meant designs, that meant like application of stuff, and it's just like, that person's whatever, but if you push and you tweak and you push and you tweak, there might be something in there that's like super beautiful and awesome. But you never know if you just said that's a drunk chick that walked in the gym.
Well, it's crazy with him because he's actually done it a bunch of times and it worked, right?
Weird.
So this attitude he's developed over time to just accept the fact that this person might come in 16 Coors Lights deep.
Dude, just tuned. Just tuned, But a buddy of mine, he trained at Westside, and he said, I mean, half the time, he said, he's like, I've seen guys bench 700 pounds like on acid, like just freaked out of their mind. It's just like wild stuff. And I'm like, holy cow. Like that whole world's wild. Yeah, like you had an old, there's that whole world like is so extreme, right? The fighting world, the lifting, the throwing, like dudes who do some pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, well, and whenever you get like these male-oriented alpha characters that all get together and they're all butting heads and trying to figure out who's the baddest motherfucker around them. They also develop like a culture of like acceptance of certain aspects of life that come like the injuries and pain and suffering and like wrestlers they like brag on suffering the most. They want to suffer more than anybody. They like that's the badge of honor is what time did you get up? 4:30. I was on my 14th mile at 4:30.
Just drag you into deep water. Let's just make it worse.
That's the part of the culture of wrestling is embracing the grind. That's the whole thing. It's like being the guy who can push being that Cam Hanes motherfucker that does those 340-mile runs.
Is because I think I've read before. Is this accurate that the highest winning percentage in the UFC were all from the wrestling background? Is that accurate?
I'd probably say that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
I think if you had to say like what's the back, I've always said that's the foundation of martial arts, because the wrestler can decide where the fight takes place. A wrestler generally mentally they're going to be tougher because they went through the hardest thing when they were a child. The hardest thing as a child is wrestling. You're starving yourself when you're growing. You're dehydrating yourself before matches. You're training and competing dehydrated. You're in a fucking hot room, clashing with other alpha males, and you're throwing each other around. It's just the hardest thing.
Getting staph infections every once in a while.
But that skill is so important.
Yeah.
The skill to be able to manipulate bodies and take them down. And if you could teach a wrestler jiu-jitsu, oh my God, they're so much better at it because they're just so accustomed. It's just they just have to learn a new series of movements to go with this skill set that they're great at controlling bodies.
Yeah, and just the proximity. Like people aren't good with being all up in people, and they're like, I live here.
They live there. And then the other thing is, if you could teach a wrestler how to strike, they have such an advantage because you can't take them down, and you're worried about them taking you down, so that opens you up to certain shots. It happens all the time where guys are worried about a takedown and they get blasted because they're thinking this guy could take me down at any moment, and then you get hit. It happens all. It's like another element that they put in that you have to deal with that they don't have to deal with. They're not worried about you taking them down. You're not even going to try. So they can be completely relaxed with their takedown defense. So then
terrifying.
It's horrible. Being there with an elite wrestler is fucking horrible.
I've even seen like elite wrestlers, even in business and stuff like that. It always feels like they're trying to shoot in on you.
Right.
Like they're looking for the weakness, trying to shoot in. You're like, this is just kind of in you, huh?
Well, they also know that they can. You're walking around knowing that you can pick up any guy you want and dump him on his head. Yeah. And most likely, they have no say in it. Like, there's nothing they can do.
You don't get a vote.
Yeah, man. If you're like, if you're around a judo black belt and you're wearing a winter coat, you might as well have a hammer like right above your head, because that guy's just gonna use that coat and slam you into the concrete. You're basically helpless.
Yeah.
If you don't know judo and you tangle up with like a real judo black belt, you're going to fly through the air and you're going to land on the ground with all of his weight and your weight on top of you. And even if you don't bang your head, your whole body's going to be out of air. You don't know how to land.
No.
You're going to land and just,
especially when a guy's controlling the smash.
And he's going to shoulder right into you as he lands. Boom. You're fucked. You're fucked. So that guy's going to look at every person like meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never realized how effective a gi choke was until Hoist gi choked me. That was my first ever. I was like, I'll try jiu-jitsu. And he did like a clinic. He's like, come on up for this thing. And my buddy is on me trying to do the thing. And then I thought Hoist put me in like remember the old thing with like the paper cutters?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure that was what he has for a forearm. And I'm like way different.
Yeah.
My big buddy that's my size, Hoist is way different than that.
It's leverage and
Holy
technique.
cow.
And
it's
tying that shoe.
It was like his arm were made with
times.
scissors. It was just like, this is amazing. Like, it's so cool to see perfection, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about coats and jackets or even a hoodie. You could choke someone so easy with a hoodie.
Really?
Just get your thumbs in deep and squeeze it. Yeah, you could choke the shit out of somebody if you grab somebody with a hoodie and just drew them in. Especially like I said, a leather coat, like a leather coat or a winter coat. Yeah, you can get a good grip.
So what do you got to wear?
Jacket.
What do you got to wear?
I choked the fuck out of somebody with a
Canadian
jean
tuxedo.
jacket.
You got top and bottom denim.
Jay Leno, you're in trouble. That jean shirt, that thing's durable. You know
Robert
why I think
Redford
durable
would be in
around your
trouble
neck? You want some shit that tears easy. Like you want a shirt that already has cuts in it.
You're preloaded.
You should like preload the back of your shirt, make some cuts in it just in case someone grabs you.
Yeah.
Because someone can just grab your T-shirt. There's actually a Gracie self-defense thing that was on that I was looking at the other day. It was a really smart move where this woman was showing that you can grab a hold of someone's T-shirt if you're a woman and you're getting attacked by a man. Just grabbing a hold of their T-shirt and then getting your legs around their neck.
No way.
You're jamming their carotid arteries with your thumb while you're holding a T-shirt and squeeze with your legs. You can put a guy out. Especially a guy that doesn't know what's happening
Yeah.
and doesn't know how to protect himself.
I don't know how to do that.
That's not
Oh,
it. But it was. She was on her back. It was on YouTube.
I
it
tried
was
to
one of those
move
things I
like
was just
that one
scrolling
time. I was
through it.
goofing around with my buddy. We call him the Cyborg. He's an absolute just monster of a human. And he and I were goofing around, and I was on my back, and so I kind of like got him the little like a leg scissors on his head, and I grabbed his arm, and I'm like, I'm gonna pull his arm off. Like I'm a big, strong deadlifter. I'm like, I got him. I finally got him. He was 290, 6'2", 290, all out. Looked like Gordon, but like bigger and stronger. And he literally I thought he was going out, and he kind of went "What?" and woke up, and he picked me up while I was hanging up, and then just slammed me down on the ground. I'm like, man, screw this.
Yeah, you can't do
People
that.
could do that to people. Like, no one could stand up with a person hanging off them and slam them back.
You
got to
hook his leg. You got to
I
underhook the leg.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I just got clobbered.
You want to see the worst version of that ever? Rampage Jackson versus Ricardo Arona. Did you ever see that in Pride? It's the worst case scenario of holding on to like a triangle while a guy picks you up.
Yep.
And Rampage in his prime was a fucking machine. He was so powerful. So he takes this dude who's 200 plus pounds, hoists him over his head, and slams him down like a pillow. So look at this. So he's caught in the triangle. Watch how Rampage does this.
Yeah,
Bro,
yeah.
that was one of the worst KOs in the history of the sport. I mean, that dude definitely could have died. He probably got the worst trauma, the worst brain trauma.
Did he knee himself in the face too?
I think Rampage collided heads with him as well. So it was probably a bunch of shit.
Yeah,
hitting
like
him.
all kinds. I think right there is
No, looks like
squashed his guts and
so it hit his shoulder. But Rampage's head went into his. This is a crazy slam, man. Look at that. Ba-boom.
mine was not nearly as devastating, but it was enough to maybe not want to do that again.
That was the worst. And this guy was never the same again. Ricardo Arona was never the same again. That is such a crazy.
Look
so
at the
that all
G-forces.
could have been avoided. Like that's not what you do. When you have a triangle, if you see a guy posturing up, you immediately go under.
Oh, okay.
And
Kind of locks him in.
If he's got you in the air, you let go of the fucking triangle. The thing that's holding him in there was him. He's holding himself in there.
Yeah, so he was the
He
pivot
wanted
point.
to, because sometimes you can keep it, right? Sometimes you can keep a triangle and you get slammed and it just makes the triangle tighter. But you got to know when you're way up in the air. You got to let go.
Yeah.
You got to fully let go and then try to sprawl. Something has to happen. You have to disrupt this motion.
Yeah.
This thing that's
Yeah,
happening.
turning
And
yourself into
the
an
best
axe.
way is an underhook. Like as soon as you feel like
okay.
he starts to stand up, you hook the leg, and worst case scenario, you transition to a leg bar, you let go of the triangle, you get control of that leg, and you use that leg either to try to submit him or sweep him. But you can never hold on to a triangle if the guy's standing up. It's just if that fucking concrete.
You're done.
You're dead.
You're done.
Your head is pulverized.
Yeah. It was bad enough on turf, but I won't do that again.
And that was like, there's a little bit of a springiness to the ground because it's in a ring. Still. And there's probably a certain amount of padding on the surface.
How
Still.
hard are those rings? And I walked around in them.
There's a little bit, like the UFC has a small amount of foam,
Yeah.
like a padding. And it's very important, really, because, guys' heads bounce off
Yeah.
and they get head kicked. They fall down, their heads bounce up. They get hit with a big right hand or something. You bounce your head. So you can't have a real hard floor.
Yeah.
But it's not soft enough where you want, John Jones power slamming you.
No, not really any day. Like, no days, actually. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's to be one of those people that make a living doing that is a wild way to go.
Yeah. What happened where that decided like that was the direction they were going to go? You're like, you know what? I'm going to get the crap beat out of me and dole out a lot of pain and see how this shakes out? Or do you just kind of like wake up one day and you're in that world, you're like, I'm pretty good?
Well, you're probably a wild person to begin with, and you're probably excited by dangerous, scary things, and you're probably pretty good at it, which is why you're fighting professionally.
Yeah.
So you're probably trained in the gym, and you realize you're better than most people. Maybe you have a few amateur fights and fuck a few people up and go, I think I'm the fucking man.
You start believing
You
the
know?
hype.
Yeah, and some of them are right. Some of them are John Jones.
That's they figure that out.
Every now and then, a guy is correct. Like that's the way you should have went. Yeah, definitely.
Dang.
You're fucking everybody up. Yeah,
Everybody battle. It's okay. You were talking about first. So Tyson,
Yeah, that's my heavyweight. That's my heavyweight all-timer. Like,
John Jones for UFC?
He's the guy that's like, I feel like Tyson in his prime, you have to have him on the Mount Rushmore. You want to have Jack Dempsey. You want to have Joe Frazier. It's like a lot of guys who are really good. It's hard to say. Like Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano. There's a lot of, like, for me, the one that you can't remove is Tyson.
Right.
So there's a bunch of other ones. Lennox Lewis in his prime was fucking amazing. Larry Holmes doesn't get the credit he deserves in his prime. There's a lot of guys who are really good heavyweight champions, but you have to have Tyson. Everything else is negotiable. Tyson has to be there in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, different people disagree.
Do you watch other sports besides fighting sports or combat sports?
I watch a little football.
Yeah?
I've been watching football lately. I enjoy it. It's fun.
Pro or college?
I watch high school.
Yeah, right.
I watch college, and I watch pro. I went to an NFL game first time this year.
Kind of cool.
It was fun. Yeah, I saw the Jets play the Cowboys down in Dallas. That was wild. It's wild when you see the scale of it. You know, the scale of it, the size
You've
of the
been to many
arenas.
college games before?
A few UT games.
Oh, you were at UT, right?
Yeah, that was fun. I got to shoot the cannon at UT.
Oh, nice.
That was fun.
Isn't it crazy? Like, have you been keeping up with, like, the NIL and all the transfer portals and how that's changed the landscape?
I have not. What is that? What are you saying?
NIL is name, image, and likeness.
Oh, that, right. The money thing.
Yeah, the money thing is crazy.
Well, they should have been paying those fucking kids a long-ass time ago. They should retroactively pay all those kids.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
They should.
Yeah.
They should. They were making money off of them. It's crazy how much money they make.
The amount of money that's happening now. It's interesting because, like, it actually, from a couple of my friends that are in that world, it creates a different conversation with the new kids. Because let's say in high school they're bringing in these recruits and everything like that, and everyone is kissing their butt. Hey man, they're like, hey, we really want you to be here. We want you to be a whatever.
Pay me, bitch.
And now it's turning into pay me, right? But then the other side of it,
I want a Corvette.
oh, that's dude. Yeah. I have friends that tell me that they're athletes who, when they're coming to a recruiting trip, say if there's not a $250,000 signing bonus as just a part of the deal, I'm not getting on the plane for the recruiting trip.
Wow.
Like an 18 or 17-year-old kid saying that.
That's ballsy.
Blows my mind.
But meanwhile, they're right. You know who else should be doing that? The fucking Olympics. The fucking Olympics. They should all say, fuck you, pay me. They really should. That's the greatest scam in all of competitive sports.
Keeping everyone. Well, now they can now. I mean, the Olympic Committee, but originally it was amateur, which
they can. Sucked. Meanwhile, like what you mean is like the NBA players can represent the United States and play in the Olympics. Yeah. That's cute. But what about the swimmers? What about the people? What about the gymnasts? What about the boxers? All those people should get paid. Yeah, every single one of them.
And no one really cares about Olympic athletes, but every 4 years. Like a buddy of mine won the 2004 shot put Olympics, and he was like, I still have to ask my mom for money. Wow. He's like, because no one cares about the Olympics but every 4 years.
God.
And you're like, you have a degree at Dartmouth, a business degree, and you're the Olympic champion. And he was the first athlete to ever eBay himself. So he had a shirt that says, "This space for rent." And so he would put himself on the market. It's like kind of like the first NL. It's like, hey man, I have to make money throwing this steel ball. And I'm 30-something years old. I'm a world champion, and I still have to ask for money every 4 years, or for 3.
They used to do that with the UFC. You used to be able to have sponsors. So anything you want, all like Condom Depot on your shorts.
Man, how about those old days of like Tank Abbott and all those guys? I used to love watching all that. When I was in college, we would like get it pay-per-view and like check it out.
Yeah, man. That's the dark days. The early days.
No
one knew what was going on.
No
one really knew what was effective. You saw some people were effective one way, and you thought that's the way to go. And
it was kind of like when you're in high school, when you would go sneak out of the house and go watch Faces of Death.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, wow, this is like this cool thing. It's like the UFC. Like
kids will never understand how difficult it was to see fucked up things when we were young. It was
Why?
hard.
Really hard.
You had to try hard. You had to like know somebody.
You had no older
that guy
kids.
Had to know somebody in the city. Someone in some dark warehouse that had a copy of some Barnyard Betty video.
It's always weird. Yeah, no, it's just like, you rode your bike all around and you like find some weird wood pile.
I remember when we were kids, someone had a video. I think it was like a Barnyard Betty type video. Like when them ladies have sex with a bunch of animals.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that.
One of us had to watch the door So if we had a video like that, we're playing in the basement. One of us had to go up to the top of the staircase and wait by the door so that no one could just open the door.
And then
so if they open the door, you would pretend like, oh, I was just coming through the door. You know, so like you hold it on the door so they can't get in. Like, oh, sorry. And then the kids downstairs would hear that. And they'd pop the tape out and pretend they were, playing Atari or some shit.
Atari.
But you had to pop that fucking tape out quick because if mom caught you down there watching a chick blow a German Shepherd.
Yeah, that didn't pan out.
And they were like real grainy, like copies of copies. They're like two guys get together with two VCRs and they record tapes.
Oh yeah, with all the weird, you have to get the.
Yeah, you had the cables in the back.
So was that you live in the city growing up? Or
I lived in the suburbs. I lived in Newton. Newton is a suburb of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Of Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you live in New Jersey at one point?
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So was my dad.
What part?
Hillside.
Have you seen all these UFOs in New Jersey lately?
No.
Yeah, like over the last few days, there's been this steady stream. They're not UFOs. They're drones.
Oh, I did see
Yeah.
something. I think you posted something about the drones or something, right?
I don't think I did.
Or somebody did.
But a lot of people have been. But they're not moving in any extraordinary way. They look like drones. they do. It just looks like a bunch of assholes thinks it's fun
Right.
to put drones up everywhere. But now there's all this like weird mythology attached to it where like the governor was saying sometimes as soon as we put eyes on them, they take off. And But if I was a UFO though, like if I was an alien and I knew that a bunch of people are trying to be smart asses and they're putting these drones in the sky, I'd be like, perfect time to visit.
Oh yeah.
These dipshits won't know the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to use my cloaking technology. I could just fly over their head and they're going to assume this is more nonsense.
Dude, one of my buddies, he probably weird to even say, like he had a friend that sent him a video of some weird stuff going on in the desert, whatever. And it went through and then he showed it to me and then it just disappeared. And he was like, the dude he was talking to said it disappeared, but then like, can you have a file that kind of self-destructs? Because it disappeared on his phone too. He's like, how do they take this off? They take this off of my phone. I don't know. I mean,
I've never heard of a file. Jamie, have you ever heard of a video file that self-destructs?
Or that someone
That's like some
someone could
Mission Impossible shit.
Yeah, so one could chirp into it and like, but it was wild. Like I was
Remember
like,
that? Like this recording will destroy
yeah,
itself
yeah, exactly.
in 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, it was wild. I mean, I wondered though, like, could they somehow backtrack it where it had been shared?
Well, that would be problematic because then they would have access to things on your phone.
I doubt that's ever a case.
More likely would be they put like a time that someone could watch the video into the video where it's valid. It's probably still fixable if someone still has it.
Well, this dude took the video.
And did it on his phone?
And did it on his phone and shared it. And then he said one day he just looked into it, looked in his phone, it was gone.
He might be retarded.
Well, that could be the case. Well, my buddy's like, it's off my phone too. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
Be retarded too. It's hard to say. It might be real though. I've never heard of that happening though, which I would assume that I would have heard of something like that, especially with the amount of people that I talk to that are in the UFO world.
That's what I figured.
A thread on Reddit about a glitch in iOS 17 that might have made some people's videos randomly disappear. Important ones that they wanted.
Right. And then they think it's the UFOs. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah, this doesn't say anything about that. This is just like, why is this happening? Is this happening to anybody else?
Okay, Google this. Is it possible to make a self-destructing video that only has a certain amount of plays in it?
Oh, that would be cool.
Right? Like if maybe you could code it into the video that once this video plays for, 14 minutes, if 14 minutes of play, it automatically
17
decodes
times.
itself.
Yeah.
Or it randomizes its because it's basically just information, right?
Right.
Information viewed through a codec.
Does it have like a cyclical rate, like this many times?
Right. Because I know there's certain things like someone will send you something on Instagram and you can watch the video, but then you can't go back and watch it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they send you a voice message and then it
goes away. Yeah. That's how Alex Jones likes to roll. He sends you voice messages and they go away.
That's probably a really good idea.
For him. Yeah, smart move. Best not to have a paper trail. I don't even know like how much of that encrypted messaging stuff works. You know, I know when Tucker was saying that he was organizing that meeting with Putin in Russia and that the government called him up because they knew that he was meeting Putin because they had access to his signal. And he was like, what? You have access to... I didn't even know someone could get into my signal. I thought that was encrypted. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope, they can get in there. So it's like, how much of this stuff is really... How much of it is really encrypted and protected, and how much would they even let you know? If they can break it, why would they even tell you?
Well, that's the whole point. It's like, it's exactly what you would say that you couldn't do it. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's...
But that was, they fucking spilled the beans.
Right.
So once they spilled the beans, like I know a lot of people, including Elon Musk, started questioning Signal.
Sure.
So I talked to someone in the government, and I said, what can you handle Signal? Like how does someone, is it as long as the state actor knows the phone number was the answer. So all they have to do is know your phone number. So if they know your phone number and you have Signal,
game over, boys.
if you're, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure they probably need to ask somebody if they can do it. It's probably not something they can just do.
Well,
But if an agent is like, Bert Sorin's acting a little fucking fishy, let's see what he's signaling to his friends.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the opportunity to just decide subjectively if that's a
Right.
thing is...
And then whatever you carry in your notes and whatever is in your folders or your photos,
they're going to
for
all
sure.
kinds of ballistics.
for sure, they've got all this.
It's kind of weird crap. They're going to
got
know where my
access
deer
to all
stands
of it.
are and everything.
You got dick pics, they got dick pics.
All of it.
They have your dick pics. It's like there's no way around that anymore. I think that's a myth. The idea that somehow or another you could have some sort of a protection from that happening today.
Yeah.
Are you making phone calls? You are. Okay. Are you on a network? Are you on Wi-Fi? Are you like? I think you're fucked.
Yeah, you would have to think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to think there's enough back doors and
Yeah.
alleged probable causes or however someone wants to spin it. That
Well, that's also how they got Huawei banned from the United States. Because I remember, I'm a bit of a phone nerd, and back in the day, Huawei had the best phones. Their phones were like way more advanced than some of the American Android
Really?
phones that were coming out. Yeah, man, they had incredible cameras and like big battery life and like crazy zoom possibilities. And I was looking to get this new Huawei phone.
Sure.
And then Huawei got banned from the United States, and I was like, what?
it goes back to anything that's banned, man. It makes you really start questioning.
It does, but when they kind of all agree, there was very little pushback that there was real security problems with these phones, and not just phones, but network devices, routers, different components that had third-party entrants. So they had the capability of accessing information that's being transferred back and forth on a network through these routers. And then I think people are like, hey, why is that in there?
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh, the Chinese government is in complete cahoots with Huawei. Like if you own a company like Huawei, you're down with the government. You have to be. That's how you stay in business.
Right.
You can't be some rebel out there operating on your own, making
Yeah.
billions of dollars, creating,
Yeah, well, you had Mike Ben. Was it Ben's on? That
Yes.
was a wonderful podcast. by the way.
Crazy
Holy
podcast.
crap! Yeah, I spun that-
Eye-opening,
Yeah, I
right?
spun that past a couple of my buddies. Actually, it was the same buddy that gave me the Yuri Bezmenov video that I gave you 4 years ago.
That
Yeah.
fucking video's changed my mind.
Right? Yeah.
When you first sent me that, you're the first guy, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, because we played that on this podcast like
all
30
the time.
times.
Yeah, we were at your house at
Yeah.
your gym.
When you played me that, I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what
Yep.
happened.
Yep. I gave it to Jack Carr and Evan Hafer too.
There's no way that was like he just guessed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
You're like, I'm going to put this next baseball into the third aisle up the thing and crack. Wow,
Yeah.
that was cool. You're
Fourth
like,
seat from the
yeah,
left.
you're like, go
Yeah.
back and look. So buddy mine that's in that world, he gave that to me 4 or 5 years ago. He told me, he's like, this keeps getting deleted. And he kind of gives me the whole briefing on a
it
lot
kept
of
getting
stuff.
deleted from
Yeah,
where?
off YouTube. He's like, they keep taking it down.
No,
I think,
really?
honestly, prior to you and Evan and Jack and guys like that, it was not easy to find. I think you guys just
Really?
changed the algorithm on it enough,
Wow.
which is pretty neat.
But that doesn't make any sense because I'm pretty sure we just found it online.
We
just found it on
He
YouTube.
told me multiple times, he's like, they've taken this down often.
Why
Whether-
would someone take it down?
I'm not sure. But I know some of my buddies that were in the teams and stuff like that. They were like, "Oh, I remember seeing this back in '95 when I went through Buds." Or when I got, maybe it was Green Team, but they were in that early days. Like, oh, I hadn't seen this video in forever. And then they kind of watched it. They're like, oh my gosh, like you're kind of getting all the background of that. But he was giving me, I can't remember where I was going with this, but he was giving me some insight, about the bends. And it was interesting. And I was like, hey, did you check this out? And he's like, yeah. He's like, sounds like he's read a couple of my briefings. I was like, interesting. Like
Mike Benz
some weird stuff going on.
Got crazy recall too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he just, no notes. Just spitting out all that information right off the top of his head.
You've had some amazingly impactful guests on here. Like I'm not trying to blow you up, but like I'm sure you know the impact that you've had on the world, which is probably really wild.
It's pretty weird.
Pretty weird, right?
Pretty weird that I didn't even try. That's
the best part about it, right?
That's the weirdest part. It was all an accident. It's like 100%. Like I just felt like this is what I should do. I should start a podcast, and then I should keep doing it. Even when it was totally non-profitable for like 5 years, I was like, yes, I like doing it. Let's just keep doing it.
That's how all the good stuff works.
Yeah.
It's like you're passionate about it. I want to go do this thing. You know, Evan and I've talked. He's like, hey, I make brown water. And I'm like, I make steel rectangles. It's weird. Like, I don't know why we decided to do it.
But once you figure out a thing that you're really passionate about, then you'll become successful if you just keep following it.
Yeah.
But the thing about the podcast thing was I managed to keep the same spirit of just doing what I enjoy doing.
Yes.
Like if I could just have conversations with people with no phones and sit, and especially if I could get a scientist to sit in here and explain things to me for 3 hours, I would have always been interested in doing that. But you can't do that. They won't do it.
Right.
You have to become friends with them, and you can only be friends with so many of them, and then you have to fly to them and sit down with them.
This time, and then you're like, you create a honey trap here. Then you're like, hey, I'll bring everyone here and talk to them.
As long as you can guarantee other people are going to listen, people want to talk about anything, which is really weird. It's wild. Like that's the way you can guarantee that you can get them to come, as long as other people are going to hear it.
Right.
So then they can sell books and
the whole deal.
Yeah, and that's great.
But it's just genius that I just appreciate the illumination on varied ideas. Like I love that there's people on the right, the people from left, people like this, hate this. Like that is so refreshing.
It's good for all of us too.
It is.
It's good to hear people even that you don't agree with.
Of course.
As long as they're nice. Of course. I don't want to argue with anybody and get in fucking screaming matches. There's some people they're like we were talking about earlier that that's how they get engagement, by constantly getting in these. That's why they have those shows like Pierce Morgan likes to do that, whereas like 4 people on the show and they all yell over each other and they're all remote, so no one's there. It's like,
that sounds horrible.
It's horrible. You don't find out nothing. If you could sit down with someone, even if you disagree with them, and just let them talk, you could have a conversation. Find out why they think the way they do. You don't have to fight them on it. Just like ask them, what is it about this thing?
Yeah, candid and curious, right?
Yeah.
Candid as in I'll actually tell you what I think, and curious I'll actually care what you think.
Yeah, and I always try to think the way they think. If someone's talking to me about a certain thing, like I will, people are, oh, you'll agree with anybody. I'm like, I kind of will if I can try to see things through your head, and I'll try to steelman it for you. Like if someone is saying something and I go, okay, so you're saying that, but if it's preposterous, I'll stop it. I'll stop it and go, that doesn't make any sense because of this. Like I can see that you haven't thought this through because, or you didn't know about that, or, how could you say this when this is possible?
Sure.
Like how do you manage those
two
two
things? And so few people will push back with kind of love, right? Because the disagreement doesn't have to mean dismissal.
No.
And when it does, that's the opposite of love and respect. It's like, no, I don't like you. Well, that's canceling.
Well, especially if people get shouty and arguey. It's like there's a way to do it where you can just talk about stuff and not be dismissive of someone. I mean, I see so many people do it where they have their opinion. Like Bill Maher likes to do that, like dismiss someone's saying like instantaneously as they're in the middle of explaining it. It's like it's kind of a sparring thing. You're trying to win rather than trying to just have a conversation.
Try to see if the other guy flinches.
Yeah, you're shutting them down. Yeah. You're shutting down things that you think you're calling bullshit. It's also a lack of patience, right? Because sometimes you have to have patience to let someone express themselves fully before you disagree. which is really important because sometimes someone will begin to express themselves and I disagree, but then they'll take it around and give me some nuance and some understanding of how they came to their opinion. Then I'll go, okay,
Right.
so I see how you
At least I see the
consider
track.
that. Yeah, and so it's more important for you for this than it is to acknowledge that. And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, I understand. So when did you decide that was? And then I want to go like, I want to know: are you a real thinker, or are you a person who has adopted a conglomeration of ideas that comes along with an ideology? So there's really smart people that have done that, and they might not even know they've done that until you corner them. Mm-hmm. And then you find like
Where did it come? Where's the
trans
origin?
kids. There's like occasionally, there's a subject like make sense of this. You make sense of
Right.
this.
Yeah. Follow it upstream to
right.
the source and then
make
go.
sense of this, and let's acknowledge what a kid is. Right. I want to know how vulnerable you think children are. First of all, I want to know, do you have any? Second of all, I want to know how malleable and suggestible, like how open to suggestion are children in your eyes. I want to know how. Do you think kids should be able to get tattoos? Do you think kids should be able to get married at 5? Do you think kids should, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you think they should be, what do you think that they can control and not control?
Right.
Do you even understand children, or are you sacrificing them and their future, these kids that you don't even know, for your ideology, for your ideological position that's like cult-like?
Yes.
And then you find that out about people that think they're intelligent until they're confronted with these like insurmountable ethical dilemmas.
Right. A similar one to, let's say, someone who eats meat but hates hunting.
Yes.
You're like, you could hate, you could not want to do it.
Yes.
But there's still a killing and a murder at some point, and you could either be a part of that or just outsource it.
Yeah.
And be okay with it.
Well, it's also, that's a cultural thing too, right?
Yep.
Like there's a lot of people in the UK that don't like hunting.
Yeah.
And they eat meat. And, they'll tell you. Like my wife was having a conversation. She was at a dinner with a bunch of people, and I was out hunting. And this guy was eating a steak. He's like, that's deplorable. She's like, where do you think that came from?
Yeah.
This is so stupid. Like you're literally carving a steak while you're saying it's deplorable that someone's out hunting. Like we eat those animals.
And what is generally, and I've had this conversation a number of times as well. And generally, if folks are candid, curious, and respectful, you could kind of bring them around, right?
Yes.
Have you had someone that really just dug their heels in or like,
No, never really in person.
Right.
Online, they'll dig their heels into the cows come home. But I feel like most people, this is why talking online sucks.
Yep.
Most people are good people. I really believe that. Even if they're like trapped in their bullshit and wrapped up in their own head, and most people want to be.
If given the chance to be good people.
And you can kind of help them along to be a good person. You kind of help them along. We help each other along. Like part of an argument is you. You know, like it's. I know that there's arguments that I've been in my life that I could have avoided if I was more skillful with conversation. And I know that I have avoided a lot of arguments, especially now as a smarter person than I was when I was younger. I'm better at it. I'm better at just like not biting on some bullshit, passive-aggressive, stupid thing that some guy says. 'Cause when I was young, if someone got passive-aggressive with me, I was like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like let's just go to
and
10.
where's that going?
Let's just go to 10.
Yeah.
I don't like how you're talking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to sit here at this stupid party and pretend you're not a cunt. And, there's been many times where, I got dragged out of a situation before
That
things
accelerates
got really,
things.
Yeah, because I'm like, let's just go to 10. You're a piece of shit. Like, I know what you are.
Yeah.
You're just a shitty person who likes to throw jabs at people when I'm just trying to be nice.
Yeah, and you also know in your pocket, you know a lot of physical things that could be
That helps.
advantageous.
That definitely helps. But it also it helps that I know that I'm being nice. So if I'm
Correct.
nice to you and you're being a cunt to me,
Then
and I'm
it's-
trying to be nice to you again, you're just thinking that you can just get away with this.
Yeah,
and that's when I like to go, hey, fuck you.
Yeah, I ain't that
and you
guy.
see that look in their face
Yeah.
like, oh no. Yeah, oh no.
Yeah.
You've gone into fuck you land.
Yeah, now we're here.
Yeah,
Now
and
we're here.
by the way, emotional pain is something that people think they can get a free slap. They think they can just get off on you and hit you with emotional pain. Like, if we're playing this let's hurt each other game, how about I just fuck you up?
Yeah,
Like,
let's-
how about that? How
let's
about
do
I just
that.
decide I'll spend the night in jail?
Yeah.
How about that? How about fuck you? Because like that's what you're doing emotionally.
Yes.
You're trying to create
Be abusive.
pain. You're absolutely being abusive.
Yes.
And some people make a habit out of like demeaning people to their face, and they think they can get away with it. It's a really shitty practice.
I do appreciate the people who physically put an end to that. Like I've never really been like, yeah, I'll do what I need to do, right? But I've never been like, I'm gonna go like. Had a couple days I'm not proud of because I kind of went ahead and hit that throttle.
Most of the time it's avoidable.
But in some days, unfortunately, you're not in the emotional state, and sometimes it is avoidable and you don't avoid.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it is avoidable. I'm so much better at that now.
I've
when I
expressed
was 25, I didn't understand that you don't have to do this.
Yeah, I've expressed my emotional immaturity. At times, I'm like, I could really take in that one a different way. And you're thankful. You're like, man, I'm glad that one really didn't go sideways because
it's also like it could go terrible and someone can get murdered. I mean, things happen and people can't believe what they did, and then all of a sudden someone's dead. That happens every day in America.
Oh, I've had a couple close ones that you just kind of everyone walks away and it's like, whoo, because you could like, it's like what was that movie like? Sherlock Holmes. Remember when he could see the situations and he like pauses it and you could see like, and when he like pauses and you're like, this would happen, this would happen, this would happen. And then you're like, oh, there's a dead guy.
Yeah.
You back it up. And you're like, glad that didn't happen. Okay, bye. I'm gone.
Bye. Just walk away. It's like you have to learn that. And the problem with young guys is, first of all, their brain's not fully formed. They're impulsive. They do wild things. And then if they feel like they're being slighted, they feel like to be a man, because they want to be a man, you have to do something about it.
Well, it's the number one question every man has. Every man has the same question.
Yeah.
Am I good enough?
Right.
That's the wounding, right?
Right.
And every woman goes, her question is,
Am I hot enough?
Do you see me? It's exactly it. Do you see me? And a man says, am I good enough? That's why there's sport. That's why there's fighting. That's why people try to make money. That's why they try to flex on each other. It's the little boy inside all of us going, am I good enough?
Yeah. And then there's the people that get past that, and then it becomes this ultimate challenge. Like the ultimate challenge of life is the most difficult puzzle to solve.
Yes.
And you can solve it above and beyond all these other psychopaths. So you're competing with all these other people that are very much like you, but what separates you from them is the work that you put in, discipline, drive, mindset, whatever it is that you can find that gives you that edge to pull ahead with from all these other people that are very, very competitive as well, doing the same thing.
Right.
And then with men, they feed off each other in those environments.
They feed
like
off.
a Westside Barbell,
Yeah,
or Kronk Gym. Or,
And then when you're wondering that, and then when someone questions it, and publicly questions it in front of your boys or front of whatever, it's like, no, I'll show you I'm good enough. I'll do something stupid right now and end up in jail.
Especially someone who's just a walking dead man with a mouth. You
Right.
know, like someone who knows they can't defend themselves, and so they just feel comfortable doing that publicly because they think they're being protected by
worst.
society. Like
That's the worst when
Yeah.
they think, this actual false state of security. You're like, man, if we were in the jungle right now, you wouldn't be doing that.
Or when women think they can do it. When women get mouthy with men, like, don't do
Why?
When I was 16 or 17 years old, I was in high school, and there was this kid that moved into the neighborhood. He came from Iran, and his family had a lot of money. And so they had this I think it was in Beacon Hill. I forget where it was, but it was a really nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
And this kid had this giant fucking house on this huge lawn. So he decided to have a party.
Of course.
So this is how he's going to make friends. He just moved here from another country, right?
Right.
So he has a party, and kids from every fucking high school came to this party. And I was at the party with a bunch of my friends, and I was walking up this staircase. I'll never forget this. So I'm walking up the staircase, and then, so it's like right here in front of me while this is going down. I can't remember what the girl did. She either slapped this guy or she threw a drink in his face. I can't remember which one it was.
Some offense.
But I remember he uncorked a right hand like Roberto Duran. This dude threw a right hand like he knew how to punch. Because I knew how to punch, so I watched him like, oh, good mechanics.
Yeah, right,
like,
right.
The
Really,
dude
really
just went
unloaded.
like this, just blap! Just hit her on the chin. Her head snaps back. A guy catches her. She goes out, and then it's bedlam. It's bedlam. I mean, people are fighting left and right. There's people fighting in the stairwell. I had to run out. There's piles of guys out on the lawn. It spread like a disease. It was like within 30 seconds.
How did you decide to hit this guy because of that?
It was screaming, and then screaming started people screaming at the people screaming, which people were fighting the people that were screaming. It was the wildest thing. It was like a disease ran through the house, like that, like World War Z, where everybody's like, ah! And I managed to not have any fights. A couple of my friends got in fights.
Like one of the better fighters there.
I was never interested in street fighting. I'm like, let me get out of here. I know what this is. This is fucking. I understand danger. Yeah. So I got out there, and but I'll never forget that. That girl thought she could hit that guy or do whatever she did. I forget what she thought. I wish I could remember.
Yeah, quality kind of.
All I remember is because it's like 30. How many years ago was that? 40 years ago?
That's a while ago.
Oh my God, it's 40 years ago. Yeah. So it was like this. Blap! I mean, just fucking, I'll never forget that, man. Horrible to laugh at it because she forgot a lot of things that night. She definitely forgot.
She might be listening to podcasts
the third
now.
grade. Yeah, she's probably like, that's me. I still can't talk. Like, she for sure got a broken face. I mean, he hit her so hard and her head snapped back. Just snapped, like she had no idea she was going to get punched by a big guy who knew how to punch. But he was like, hey, fuck you. Like, you just got the wrong guy with like 3 Millers in him. And he just uncorked
Probably not the first time that guy.
Probably not the first guy he hit a chick.
Yeah.
Because the way he did it was like, he didn't slap her. You know, he didn't slap her.
That's a scary one.
He could have just slapped her or pushed her or something. You didn't have to KO her. But there's women that think that they can just go up to a guy and yell because they're protected by society. There's fucking psychos out there.
It just goes back to be nice.
Yes.
Be nice,
be
man.
Nice.
Like, be nice.
But there's like, you motherfucker, I'll fucking kill you. Like, hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
I've been backed up a couple of times with the bumps on the chest, and it's like, all right. Then you're like backed against a car, like at a tailgate or something. You're like,
yeah. And when you say "don't touch me," it gets hot, and then it's like they might just touch you because you said "don't touch me," and like I'm telling you, don't touch me, and then you have to touch them, and then you're assaulting me. Like no, you're still talking, so I haven't assaulted you. Like if I assaulted you, this would be over super quick.
Right.
So let's not do that.
Yep, that happened to me in D.C. I was walking with my wife, and it's during when everything was popping off. Big time. Big time.
People got real mouthy.
Real. And we're walking through, and of course, you know, truth be told, I'm walking through. My wife looks like a Viking also, and we're walking through DC during the height of everything. No mask because I'm outside and I'm a sovereign individual, and screw that. You know, and a whole chattering group of a certain population of, well, it's Antifa. And so they're rah, rah, rah. And I was like, and I just said, I'm not going to stop walking. Please move out of my way. Rah, rah, F you, F this, F that.
Meanwhile, you did nothing.
I literally was walking across, and they were 40 yards from me and ran across the street to come yell at me like a bark. You ever seen like a bear or a wild boar gets like bayed by dogs, and they're all like, row, row, row.
Yeah.
And we're just walking, and it's like, okay, please. And we're trying to get to my hotel, and there's a cop because they boarded everything off because everything was crazy. It was like the 4 big groups were all doing the deal that weekend. And I was like, my hotel's right there. Sorry. I said, sir, do you think I really want to deal with this? Like in there, everyone has their cameras out because they're like, big guy's going to smoke somebody, right? And there's a whole deal. And then finally, one of them was chirping at me. She fell down and tripped over something, and I helped her up because that's what you do. And then get your hands off. It's like, okay, man, can I please get to my, like, this is a thing. So, and then they played music all night till 7 a.m. right outside of our hotel just to make sure that no one slept. It was a wonderful time.
Fun times.
It was a great time.
Whatever happened to Law and Order? Why did people think that was a good thing? Why? There were so many goofy motherfuckers that didn't want people mad at them, so they started yelling out, defund the police. They started getting on board with it. Even Kamala Harris posted defund the police. Like, I mean, defund the police on Twitter.
Yeah, like, when is it a good idea ever to, like, kind of cancel anyone? Like, there's, like, besides, like, someone that hurts children, like, after that, kind of do what you want to do, right?
Well,
like,
that's not even a canceling thing. That was just people had decided that there was an enemy out there. I say this, that, like, protests are too much like war. You're on the ground, and you're marching around with a bunch of people yelling. You all have a cause, and you're all moving as one group. Yes. It's too much like war. I think there's triggers. That's why mob mentality exists, because you got to be able to kill people if some shit's going down, if you're at war.
Because
so
what
there's
escalates.
Right. There's a mode that people snap into. It's called mob mentality. Why does it exist? It exists because at certain points in history, we have gone to war with other groups of people on the ground.
Yep.
And I think that's built into your psyche.
Yep.
And I think it's just like catching a fish. You know how you catch a fish? Like if no one's ever caught a fish before, you catch it, you get so excited. I think it's because your brain is hardwired to know that that fish is going to feed you.
Yes.
And that's why it's exciting.
Yeah.
And you're hardwired to know that if you're yelling and you meet an opposing group, those are the bad people. And you're going looking for people that are opposing groups because you got power. There's a bunch of you. You're a bunch of bullies. You're rolling deep. And you find that fucking white guy with the beard and you're like, he's the enemy.
It was wild.
It was wild. But it was like an open door to this psyche that has always existed. That mob mentality has always been a thing. And if you open that door and you allow it to stay open and you don't do something to close it with law and order, you have fucking madness. You have madness. And we had that. We had that on the streets. In certain places in this country, for months at a time, it was fucking chaotic.
Bonkers. Yeah, it was actually pretty cool and I want to say none of that world was cool. But during in my town, they started burning stuff and everything like that. And my sheriff, he's a friend of mine. He's like, yeah, we shut that down fast. I was like, what happened? It's like, someone threw a brick. I got center mass with a beanbag. Period. First time. And I go, how long did that take us? We haven't had a problem since. I was like, perfect. He's like,
And that's kind. It's being kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Using a beanbag is being kind.
Yeah, a severe punishment really fast generally trains people pretty quickly. And then it's like, all right, our town went back to being cool. Everyone's fine.
Yeah, there's no reason for it. And it was just it's crazy how quickly it all boiled over. And it was all these events happening together at the same time, right? The COVID, the lockdowns, the anger. Everybody got real weird because everybody was just locked in their home for months at a time. And then the George Floyd thing and the public outrage and the people were on the street. And then people were encouraging it and funding it. There were certain groups that were encouraging it, organizing it, and funding it. And they got money from people to do it. And they had pallets of bricks that were conveniently located on the street. All that stuff's real.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, we saw it. It was remarkable to see it in real time.
That's why it's crazy having a guy like Mike Benz lay out how it all is going down. And you think, oh, it's all organic. People are fed up. No, there's a bunch of people that are profiting off of this.
Yes.
They want this to take place. They want to be able to push new laws through. They want to be able to grip tighter control on censorship. These social media companies have to pay. They're responsible for this. No, you fucking funded it. You fucking funded it with tax money that was filtered through NGOs, you cocksuckers. You guys are a part of this. You want this to happen.
Right. That's where everyone just pause.
Yeah.
Just like pump the brakes. If it feels like, what was that song by Iron Maiden? I can't remember, but it speeds up at the end. You know, that's what it felt like the last 4 years, especially during 2020. I was like, oh, this is the end of like Paranoid or whatever it was. And it just sped up and you're like, oh, is this how the end of the story goes? Like as in humanity?
It could be.
Yeah.
I think we got a taste of what's possible, but I also think it was horrible. Anybody who lost someone, anybody where it all went down, I think it was horrible. Don't get me wrong. But I also think we're lucky.
Yes.
Because we got to see it. It's horrible if you lost your business. It's horrible if you got forced to get vaccinated. It's horrible. All those things are horrible. But we got to see how many people are fucking cowards. We got to see how many people fold as soon as there any sort of external pressure from either their surround or how many people got forced into it by their job. Sure. We got to see that. And we got to see how there are unscrupulous groups in power that will coerce people to do things that are not scientific, they're not ethical, they're not moral, if they can profit off of it. And we got to see that they will use you as a human fucking ATM machine, and they will figure out a way to maximize their profits and maximize their control. So now we know. So now you can't think that the world is some sort of 1950s movie where the good guys wear the white hats and the bad guys wear the black hats. You got to realize, like, there's a lot of human interest shit going on, and humans have a certain interest in getting control over money and over people, and they do it whenever they can. And if they can do it through the guise of being progressive and kind, or if they can do it through the guise of, you know, whatever, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like whatever it is, they find a way to rationalize these very specific patterns of behavior that the founding fathers of this country fought against when they created the Bill of Rights and they created the Constitution. They did all that knowing that these human nature, these human instincts exist.
Yeah, it'll keep float charting back down to this eventually. And it's like, hold on, people are people, and people are going to do people stuff.
And every time they pass something like the Patriot Act or the Patriot Act 2, they just chip away at that. They're chipping away at that. And it's their job to do that in their mind.
Right.
It shouldn't be, because there's not enough oversight of them. That's the problem. It's like, this is the whole concept of the deep state, which was always like such a stupid conspiracy theory for the longest time. People are like, oh, you're worried about the deep state? Until you are. Until you're like, oh my God, it's real. Oh my God. How did that kid get on that roof? Come on. How did he walk around with a fucking rangefinder like we were talking about before? Rangefinders? Yeah, that's what he had. That's why you use those, folks, for fucking shooting people.
He's not golfing.
The whole thing was nuts. And we were all just sitting there going, oh, the deep state's real. Like, oh, someone did something here. How did his apartment get professionally scrubbed? Are there a team of people that are actually organizing something like this? Has this happened before? Why won't they release the Kennedy files? He died how many fucking years ago? 1963?
Yeah.
That's 61 years ago. How about you release that?
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, how about you guys release that?
Yeah, or there's maybe a reason?
Yeah.
Do you think that stuff's going to, I mean, do you think
61 years is not a lot of time, though. That's a good point. Like, maybe we should wait another 60.
Makes sense, right?
People aren't ready yet. They're not ready yet.
I've thought about that a lot. I want to know, right? I want to see behind all the scenes. I want to see the Epsteins, the Diddy's, the
Cash Patel says first day one.
Let's go.
That's what he says.
Let's see it.
If they get him in there,
what a stud, right?
Oh man, if you are the deep state, you know what he said he wanted to do? He would close Langley and make it a museum of the deep state.
Jeez.
This is the first thing he said he would do. And then just reorganize everything and say, now go back to chasing criminals.
Yeah.
And stop attacking the fucking citizens. Stop spying on people, you fucking weirdos.
I'm so pumped about him and Tulsi. And like, there's just such an awesome group of people that are just
certainly interesting.
I mean,
I'm even excited about the way Trump is doing interviews now. Like he's doing it. It's like he's become like a wiser person in interviews. Like he did this interview with this lady from, I think it was NBC. The recent one that he did was over an hour. But even the way he was talking to her, she was saying things. He's like, you know, you would be so much better if you weren't so biased. So he said to her. It was like a kind way of saying it to her.
Do you think he always had that and he's just so intelligent he's playing different cards at different times?
I think he's realizing that part of the problem is not just the resistance that he faced, but his reaction to the resistance. And he still slips sometimes, like he tweets out, I hate Taylor Swift.
Oh my gosh.
Which I thought was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing when I saw that. I just love irrational tweeters.
Right. I mean, at what point does like the incoming president going to just dunk on somebody?
Well, he wasn't winning yet. I think he was freaking out, you know.
Oh,
I honestly think he was freaking out.
You think?
Yeah, because they were doing a psyop. And they were all of a sudden making it seem like Kamala Harris was the dream that we'd always been looking for. And they were tricking people who recognized that she was an unpopular vice president just 3 weeks ago. And everybody was all of a sudden on board. And
that one spun around fast.
Jesus, it was wild to watch. But that was another thing. Like, if you can learn from it, look, we got through it. It didn't work. But you should learn that the government will organize to do that to protect their position of power. Because here's what's up. The people that are in power, and we're not even saying they're evil. I'm not saying anything bad about them. But the people in the administration that's there currently, they're all going to lose their jobs. Okay? Or they keep their jobs. So if they can keep their jobs, what's the way we keep our job? The way we keep our job is we present her as the best option possible. Even if they don't think that's true, they have a vested interest. You're talking about thousands of people that are in control of these very organizations that were going after social media and were getting them to take down factual information because it was dangerous to their narrative. So they have already shown that they don't have ethics. They have already shown that they don't give a fuck about freedom of speech and the First Amendment. What they want is to keep their fucking job and keep power, and also not get in trouble for some of the shit they did that was maybe illegal. Which we wouldn't even have known about if Elon didn't buy Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think the Elon buying Twitter was like that.
It's a game changer.
The game changer.
The fork in the road for civilization.
Yep. Yeah. It's wild to think, isn't
Mark
it?
Andreessen has said there's 2 forks in the road. There's 1, Elon buys Twitter, and 2, Trump turns his head and doesn't get shot. Those are the 2.
Yeah.
If those 2 things don't happen, who fucking knows where we are?
I don't disagree. And you look at those both scenarios are both like 1 in a million. Like, how would Trump turns his head? Like, that's wild.
Right.
But then, like, how would a guy like Elon exist, first of all, in our lifetime?
Right. What are the odds?
What are the odds, right? That has the vehicle of Twitter or and all the things line up.
Not just has the vehicle, has so much fuck you money that he's willing to blow $44 billion on something that's worth $200 billion, maybe. So, or rather 20 billion, maybe.
Right.
So one of the things that like there's this narrative, like he's such a bad businessman, Twitter is worth $20 billion less than when he purchased it. No. It was never worth that much. He overpaid for it.
Right.
He overpaid for it on purpose. Yeah.
Knowingly.
Yeah, knowingly. He just wanted to take control of this fucking thing that has always been so important to us, which is the First Amendment.
Yes.
Like, here's my favorite. People keep saying, I keep seeing this where people that go over to Blue Sky, they keep saying, what Elon's done is highlight right-wing voices and accentuate right-wing, and Twitter is overrun by right-wing now. No, this is actually representative of the real country, which is 50-50. This is what you never had before because conservative voices were always censored.
Always.
So now conservative voices and progressive voices coexist, and the progressive voices who are the babies don't like it because now they have people that think completely different than them, and they can't stop them. They're used to silence them.
Right.
You used to not be able to say anything about certain things. You would get kicked off, and now you could fully express yourself.
Sure.
And you're finding out there's people you agree with, there's people you disagree with. That is the world. The world is not some fucked up echo chamber where if you say, a man is never a woman, you get banned for life. That happened to my friend Megan Murphy. She got banned for life because she said a man is never a woman, which is biologically true. But they were like, no, that's transphobic. For life.
For life.
For life, forever. Bye. So they don't want any narrative contrary to what they have accepted as doctrine. Right. And that's what's so fucked up.
Remaining dogmatic in the face of alternate information.
And pushed by the government. Yeah. This is what's really important.
And again, that's where you kind of look back and go, if something is being pushed by anyone, follow the money, follow the track. Like, why?
So they're doing it under the guise of being progressive. So this is why they think it's worth doing. It's like if you can allow the government to censor you under the guise of them being on the good side, then you're lost because then you've bought into this nonsense. And you have, if you just looked at it objectively, you have people that are still supporting the military-industrial complex, still supporting overthrowing democratically elected governments in other countries. It's still the same shit that you hated about the right, and that same government, you've let them into your home and you let them control this most important platform of free speech in the world. Because you think they're doing it for your side, which is good. It's a good thing. Meanwhile, they're drone bombing people in Yemen. They don't give a fuck about you. This is so stupid. They're just trying to stay in power. And they knew that they were going to lose power if that Hunter Biden laptop got out. They're like, we're fucked. This could cost us 10 million votes.
And the wild part is, I guess because it's after the fact, but it doesn't seem like that whole thing really, really changed the scoreboard. And maybe I could be wrong.
The Hunter Biden laptop thing? I think it did.
I don't think enough people were talking about it.
They didn't know. First of all, where do people find out things? most people are not finding out things through the newspaper.
No.
They're finding out things through social
Memes.
media. And if you can block it on social media,
Yeah,
they
of
don't
course.
find out about it.
Of course. There's so many things I talk to people about that's like kind of in our world, like just everyone knows this stuff. And I'll talk to people just on the street, whatever. They have no idea.
Yeah, most people don't have any idea.
And that's where I started going, oh, there's different narratives being spun to different algorithmic groups because we're all in the Truman Show, our own little Truman Show.
100%.
And we all think that we know what's going on. And I'm like, hey, guys, we all have our different scoreboard somehow that's
Yeah.
been put up. So, like, let's just question the scoreboard for a minute.
And learn how to communicate with people you
Yes.
disagree with. And
Yes.
this is the problem with these people that wanted all the right-wing voices banned from Twitter. Like, hey, guys, that's bad for you. It's
Right.
bad for you.
Yes.
And it's bad for your own objectivity, your own
Yes.
understanding of the world.
Yep.
You need to, even if someone's wildly incorrect, if they're wildly wrong, like
Yeah.
you need to be able to know that people do think that way. It's
Make
good
it-
for you.
Yeah, make a good point. And like, let's listen. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and I enjoy talking to people from all over, and like much like yourself. And I stupidly got into some some DMs with like people just like hit me up and they're like, hey, then, and I'll just like, oh, I'll ride the ride.
Yeah.
And I'll ask questions and this and that and the other. But it was very illuminating. Like, oh, wow, you're looking at a totally different scoreboard, a totally different game clock, a whole different thing. And it makes me at least question myself and go, well, maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe I'm.
No, they're just a Cowboys fan. They're a Cowboys fan. The Cowboys can do no wrong.
Right.
And you're like, fuck you. I like the Raiders. Like, whatever it is.
Show you guys.
That's what it is. It's teams for people who don't believe in sports.
Right.
And that's politics
That's
for a lot of
very
those
interesting.
fuckers. A lot of those fuckers are not into sports. And
Or
see,
competition.
I've always been super reluctant to the whole team thing in the first place because when I stopped playing baseball and I started fighting, one of the reasons why I did it was like I didn't like that little Billy can drop the ball and I'm a fucking loser.
Oh, I get it.
I didn't like that.
I get it.
I like to rely on myself. Like
I've
and
never played a team sport.
The most relying on myself to me was like fighting. I was like, we're the same weight. There's no trickery. You're 3, 2, 1, go. You know, you're like, are you ready? Are you ready? Go. It was like so simple to me.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm looking for.
Yep.
This is like competition that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And this idea of like joining a group of people and all of their opinions I have to agree with, like that's horrendous to
Right.
me. Like that, like what are the odds they're going to be right? What are the odds? Even in fighting, so many people are so wrong in their ideas. Like there's guys in the gym that I'll hear them giving advice like, you don't need submission, you just want to learn submission defense. Like, what are you talking about? Don't tell him that. Like, you should shut the fuck up. Like, and this guy's a trained fighter in a gym. And he's telling people, you just need submission defense. Like, no. You need to learn how to do it so you can even defend it correctly.
Right. Just even know what's out there.
Right.
That's like listening to the other side.
Right.
It's like, hey, tell me why you believe X, Y, and Z that I think is absurd. But yeah, give me, oh, wow. Okay. Well, now I realize you're crazy, but at least I know.
It's
Like,
also like, who are you training with where you don't think that works? No, like,
Right.
why don't you go train with Fabricio Verdum and then tell me you should learn your guard? You don't know what you're talking about. You're talking nonsense. You're
Right.
saying something from this very narrow-minded perspective. Like you can only learn so many skills. Like, no, you should learn the whole thing.
Right.
And if you can't learn the whole thing, you're in the wrong game because these kids that are coming up, guarantee you that. I watch some of these kids that are coming up in the amateur ranks and the kids that are fighting in the UK and they're going to make their way in the UFC. These motherfuckers are complete and they're like
Yes.
18. Some of these kids that are fighting in 1FC, they're like 17, 18 years old, and they're complete. They can do everything. Like, you better learn how to do everything.
Yeah. You're going to meet that guy.
Yeah, that guy's out there. And otherwise, you're in the wrong game.
Right.
And if you're giving advice saying, you don't need to learn that, like, oh.
Well, that's a good, like, if you're ever giving advice to someone who doesn't need to expand their horizons, like, that's just wrong.
Right, but imagine if that guy's your coach. And imagine you have a team. And everyone in the team has to believe that submissions are
That's
bullshit.
just building that same narrative.
Right.
No,
And then you get trapped with all these meatheads that think it's just all about ground and pound. And then you get triangled every weekend. You're like, I'm tired of getting triangled.
yeah, well, it's the same tribalism and strength conditioning too. You either get guys who are like, oh, all the powerlifting moves, that's all you got to do. Bench squat,
Right.
deadlift. And it's like, oh, the other guys, Olympic lift, you got to snatch, clean, and jerk, and everything else is stupid. You're like, okay, guys. Like, and I used to joke. I was like, I could look at your shoes and I could tell you what tribe you're in and what music you probably listen to.
What are the shoes that you look at? Converse All-Stars. A lot of guys lift with those.
Because they'll be Westside guys.
That's a hardcore dude.
It's a hardcore dude. He's going to run All-Star. He's going to run Converse. He's going to box squat. He's
Let me ask you this.
Sumo dead.
Why doesn't Converse make an All-Star with a wider toe box? Because
think
I try to lift in Converse, my tees are stupid.
they're hard. They're hard to do.
I like a wide toe box.
Yeah.
I like a Vivo barefoot like that. But Converse are good because they're flat. There's not a lot of. There's no cushion there.
It depends on what you're doing, right? If you're like more of a wide stance sumo or box squat, because your heels aren't elevated, it's actually a better situation for squatting.
Right.
Well, if you're an Olympic lifter, you're going to be closer, so you want a heels elevated with a flexible toe. And that's so you look and you're like, oh, okay, like, this is what you're doing. And then I kind of laugh. Like, the guys with the cross trainers are usually just dudes that do a whole bunch of crap, and they're doing plyos and dancing around and whatever. But there's always like these little tribal things. Like, if you're this person, you're wearing Chucks and you're listening to Pantera.
Yeah.
Like, it's just part of the gig. And it's always funny. And it's like, all right.
Some people think you have to lift heavy. If you don't lift heavy, you're a pussy.
Oh, or you have to listen to music at like 8,000 decibels to lift heavy.
Yeah. And slap your fucking thighs and scream.
I've danced that dance before.
Throw the powder out of your hands.
I've done the soul. I've done the
smelling salts.
Smelling, of course.
Oh, we threw smelling salts in here.
Let's go.
Right here.
Yeah, let's
right
roll.
Gosh,
let's go. It's a good one, huh? Rough.
Ooh.
It's probably better than what I had back in the day.
It's a good one, and it's not even that fresh. Yeah, it's not even fresh.
That's worse. Worse than I remember.
That's Juju Mufu's.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are an unlicensed promoter of this brand.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we used to do the little capsules and break them, and that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, that shit's real. That's a whole jar of it. It's
Yeah.
like this. It's potent. The fumes that come out are so strong. When you have a sealed bag, you could smell it on the outside of the bag. Then when you open the bag, you got a sealed bottle.
I think my ears are bleeding now.
Just the smell from opening the bag is rough.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I just...
What does that do? Does that really help you? Have you ever tried to lift before that and then
it's kind
add
of
it?
just snaps the central nervous system. It's kind of like, when you're passed out, right?
Does it make you a little stronger, you think?
More mad.
More mad.
More mad.
Mad's good.
Mad's good. On big gross motor movements, squats, deadlifts. I used to call deadlifts are just how mad you were.
They used to have the strongest man competitions all the time on ESPN.
Yeah.
Well, those dudes were
so
holding on
cool.
to cars.
Oh,
they had the
those
cars
best
on the
of-
ramps.
Oh, so
the cross.
cool. Yeah, the big stones and Atlas stones.
Oh,
It was so
yeah.
great.
It was fun.
Yeah, I watched them all the time in the 90s. And then actually my dad was in 1980 at the Playboy Club. He was with Bill Kazmaier when he did the silver dollar deadlift. It was
What's the
pretty-
silver dollar deadlift?
He had like 900 something pounds of these like clear boxes, and they were filled with silver dollars.
Oh, wow.
And it was super cool. And so there's like an iconic lift, and Pops was like hanging out with those cats. But it's funny because there's like a old picture of him, and I'm pretty sure, he was obviously training that day. I think he was partying pretty hard too. So he looked straight off of a ripper, and I was like, man, the 80s were awesome. He looked like he looked like Magnum PI. It was awesome.
Yeah, they were just learning things.
Oh,
It was
man.
the pioneer days, basically.
Jeez, it was so cool.
You always knew that if you were watching The Strongest Man, if the dude's name was Magnus, he was
Yeah.
going to fuck things up.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
always some Magnus
Is it for
character.
Magnuson, a Samuelson, if there's some sons involved?
One of those guys is fighting MMA. He's been fighting at Mariusz Pudzianowski.
Oh, I remember Maris.
Yeah, he went from being a strongman to being like
terrifying.
a really good MMA fighter.
I could see that.
In the beginning, he was getting fucked up, but he
Sure.
tried to dive in right away. Like he tried to fight. God, he fought some good fighters like right away.
When Marius was at the height, because we used to do a lot with the Arnold
He
Strongman
fought
Classic.
Tim Sylvia. That's who
Oh
he
my
fought.
gosh, did he?
He fought Tim Sylvia like really early on. Like when Tim, so he fought Tim Sylvia in his third pro fight, and he got the
Yikes.
fuck beaten out of him.
Yeah, well, that'll happen.
Like that was just.
But I never.
Then he fought
forget-
Butterbean. He beat Butterbean. He lost to James Thompson, and he beat
sad.
James Thompson. Oh well, no contest. It says. Yeah.
What a stud.
Fought Bob Sapp. That was when Bob Sapp was like taking some kind of
my
dives.
My buddy used to train with Bob.
Holes Gracie beat Holes Gracie. Yeah, he knocked Holes Gracie
Jeez.
out. Yeah, so he's got a bunch of like legit MMA fights.
Yeah, Pudzianowski was like one of the first guys I ever saw that was that big that had like vascular lats. So we were in the backstage, and it was kind of weird because like he was considerably bigger the year than before. And I think even taller, too. I was like, this guy wasn't I was just like, well, there you go.
How did he get taller?
I was like, that's why I was questioning.
He's
I was like,
on all kinds of
I don't
crazy
remember him being taller than
That's
as
amazing.
my height, but it was
Homeboy
really
got
weird.
taller. Look at the
Seriously.
size of that
Yeah.
motherfucker.
Yeah, he was backstage, and everyone was like big, but it was like Marius is in a whole different category.
Oh, he was a tank.
On
See if you can
multiple
find
levels.
him now, though. He's slimmed down considerably. He still looks fucking huge. But as an MMA fighter now, he's yeah. See there, see. Click on that
Yeah,
picture. No,
he's
the
still-
other one.
He's still terrifying.
Go the what above it? Right above it.
That's not new. That's old.
Yeah, but what year is that?
I don't know. It's clearly old though. 22.
Oh, because it's
22
blurry.
years old. Yeah.
Does it say
He's
that
on
it's
a
22 years
potato
old?
camera.
2002.
Oh, okay. See if you can find some footage of him actually fighting. Maybe there's some. I'm sure he's got some highlight. There he is, right there. So he's on his knees. Oh, here we go. So he's still stiff, but he's got good
Yeah.
technique, and he's got a lot of power, man.
Yeah, look at the muscles on the back of his neck. He looks like one of those bucks during the rut when
Yeah.
their necks blow up really
Yeah,
big.
but at least like he's throwing correctly, hands up
Yeah.
high, and this is all technical work here.
Well, it's
But-
like Brian Shaw's been doing a little bit of sparring with Derek Wolf.
Oh Jesus!
How terrible is that?
What does he weigh? 390?
I don't know. I mean, I know he was up to 440 something at one point. My dad is actually who got him into strongman. He came by our booth at 18 years old, and my dad was like, "Hey, you're really strong. You should like get into this."
Yeah, he should be on another planet. You're too big. You're
is
too big
just-
for this planet.
Yeah, he was probably 240. When we
that
met
makes
him.
me believe in the Anunnaki.
Right.
You know, you
right.
see
There's actually
giants that are that like what happened?
100%.
How'd you get so big?
Those dudes. You remember Cleve Dean? You ever remember that guy?
No, who's he?
So he was an old, they called him like a pig farmer. He was the one that won the original World's Strongest Man, but he was an arm wrestling champion. And he was like all those old, like weird, it's like 440 pound, like just giant farmer. Yeah, there he
Whoa.
goes. Yeah, that cat.
Oh, why is that poor little fellow arm wrestling?
I mean, look how big that human is.
Jesus Christ! Look at his hand.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Look at that photo. That's Big Daddy Goodridge. It was an MMA fighter. Look at that. The hand holding the table in the front. Look at the size of that fucking thing.
Wild, right?
Yeah. If you could teach that guy how to throw a jab, he'd fuck a lot of people up.
I would like to see a fight between him and Andre the Giant.
Oh God.
That'd have been awesome.
Definitely wouldn't be long.
Right, right.
They
Did
probably
you ever
can't
meet
go very
Andre?
long. No, I did not.
That'd have been cool.
Yeah, I would like to have met him.
That'd have been.
I met Hulk Hogan twice.
Did you?
I met him once when he was super tall. And then, well, I met him multiple times, but I met him once when he's super tall, and then now he's just like regular big.
Really?
Yeah, because he's lost like 5 or 6 inches of height for his back.
Oh, you're just getting
All of his
compressed.
back is all like fused.
Wow.
His whole back is fused. He's so fucked. How many surgeries did he say he had, Jamie? Some crazy amount of back surgeries.
Really?
Yeah, his whole back is fucked. Like he walks with a cane. It's rough.
Have
And
you
it was
talked-
because of he would
25 in the last 10 years.
25 back surgeries.
Oh, so you just
At least
lost
10
all
were
of
back.
his.
He has had knees, hips, shoulders, face, abs.
Oh,
I'm sure you've met Stallone before, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Have y'all just talked like random old weird stuff? Like,
No, I didn't get a chance to talk to him very much. I interviewed him once for, I think it was Spike TV when I was doing the UFC thing. I
Yeah.
interviewed him. It was fun.
he is wild. He's very similar to you in that, so like wild, like remembers everything from like those eras of stuff. And you know Gunnar Peterson. So I was at Gunner's gym in L.A. and Stallone was in there. I was like, oh, it's badass, freaking Stallone. Like I'm a kid of the '80s, and I was like, hey, you know, would you mind? He sat down with me for 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And we just talk like, but he mentioned Cleve Dean. Like he remembered like all the arm wrestlers, the boxers, like historian of the human performance world. It was like, oh, this is so cool. I figured you guys had to like have nerded out about it.
Have you ever paid any attention to the old catch wrestling guys?
No, what's that?
Okay. Catch wrestling was catch as catch can, which is what they used to call it. I think when they were in England, and then
Okay.
when they came over to America, it was called cat. What it was basically wrestling with submissions, and there were certain rules like you could pin a guy or you could submit him and they can tap. And there was a few guys that were legendary for their strength and conditioning routines.
No way.
Yeah. Josh Barnett learned under Carl Gotch, And Gotch was like famous for having like this unbelievable gauntlet of strength and conditioning work that you had to be able to get through before he would even train you.
Really?
Yeah. Like he went over to Japan and Gotch trained a lot of guys. Like there's a lot of like
What era
catch
was
wrestling
that?
influence. Well, when you go back to the early days of catch wrestling, like go Farmer Burns, because Farmer Burns was like one of the, what is this? What am I watching here? What is Catch as Catch Can? So these guys,
Was that
they
George
would have these.
Hackenschmidt?
Is that what it was?
Yeah, back up for a second. So yeah, Hackenschmidt.
Yeah.
So he's like one of the fathers of strength and conditioning.
Makes sense because a lot of these
Hack squat.
Carl Gotch and Hackensmith were duking it out at Comiskey Park,
Yeah.
and they would have wrestling matches, but they were real matches.
Wow.
And then somewhere along the line, they started doing carnival matches, and then these carnival matches, they had, you know, regular people that they would find, and they would like have predetermined outcomes. Then it became pro wrestling, and that's where pro wrestling was
okay.
given birth to.
Right.
It was out of this necessity to kind of rig the matches.
Right.
But
You're getting the Wahoo chop. And
see,
stuff.
these are kind of enthusiasts that are doing it now, like in a modern setting. But the guys who really know the stuff, like Josh Barnett, has tapped out some legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts in competition with catch wrestling techniques. It's like Kimuras, Americanas.
That's
like,
cool.
They call that a double wrist lock, though. They have like different terminology for some of the same moves. But Farmer Burns was this guy that was. He was so legendary with his strength and conditioning that he would hang from a tree. He would literally like hang himself.
Like
because
hang?
his neck was so built up, and he was a small guy. He was like 160 pounds. But he was so jacked, and he literally had like a pit bull neck. There's photos of him where he would do this stunt where he would hang by the neck in front of crowds.
Right.
Like, look at him. That's him.
Oh wow, okay.
That's
So it's
Farmer Burns.
Burns. Okay, probably very similar to the Mighty Atom, if you've ever heard of him.
But you know how fucking strong your neck has
Stupid.
to be and not just hang sometimes, hang like all the time. Look at his neck.
That's amazing.
Look at his fucking neck. But he knew that, you know, if
Yeah.
your neck is weak, your body's weak, your core is weak. If someone collar ties you and you got a neck like that, you can resist it and you could work your shit.
Yeah. Anything that hangs out of your T-shirt, you better train.
There was a bunch of those guys
Yeah.
back in those days that just had these incredible strength and conditioning programs. And
Yep.
they used a lot of things like steel maces.
Yep.
Like Carl Gotch was. See if you can find Carl Gotch strength and conditioning routine. Because even like as an older man, when he was teaching people stuff, he would show how he maneuvered these, you know, these big fucking
Yeah.
maces. It's like super impressive stuff. But
but it's maneuvering something, not necessarily
Yes.
lifting it.
all that functional strength stuff, he would have those guys do 500 bodyweight squats every day. Every day.
Oh, that's cool.
So here's him back then.
Carl Gotch.
And a lot of it was like Hindu push-ups. And
Yeah.
look how flexible he was. For a big fucking giant dude.
Yeah.
Like super flexible. So they realized that, you know, like we were talking about, technique is very important, but
Right.
also strength.
Yeah.
So look at the size of his fucking thighs, dude.
Yeah, look at the neck. And then,
Yeah.
Oh.
And so he'd make these guys do these crazy wrestlers bridges, and look at how you could do that. Like support yourself and pull yourself back up like that. So they kind of like resist against necks.
Yeah.
So these guys would have these unbelievably grueling physical sessions, and then they do their technique.
Wow. So
Yeah.
they would attempt to, I guess, be a pre-fatigue, and so you'd learn to do it.
Well, also, you just had to be in phenomenal shape, because in wrestling, you know, that's the first thing that goes.
Oh,
is
gosh, I did a
you
million of
must
those.
have ridiculous conditioning to be an elite wrestler. Look at the size of his fucking legs, dude.
Jeez.
So Carl Gotch was just like super famous for this. He's in Japan here teaching these guys.
Wow.
And obviously this is black and white. It's just a long time ago.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the? It's
Who is he training here? Does it say who he's working with?
Inoki.
That's Inoki. Oh, wow. Of course, Inoki who fought Muhammad Ali.
Oh, okay. Right.
You ever see that fight?
No.
Oh, my God. It was like some crazy scam fight where Inoki
Does he
just
stand on his face?
dropped to his back. Yeah, work his neck. So he's lifting him up with his
Stand
neck.
on his face, though,
Yeah,
too.
man.
Good job.
Carl Gotch didn't
Holy
fuck around, dude.
Yeah, that's obvious. That'll build your chin.
So Inoki had this fight with Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali's trying to punch him, and Inoki just goes to his back and kicks his legs. So he fucked Muhammad Ali's legs up. Like they were really fucked up for quite a while.
Really?
After that, yeah. So this is what they did. He just kicked his knees and kicked his legs.
Yikes.
And Ali's like, what the fuck? And it's in Japan, and they're paying him a ton of money to do it. And so the referee has to separate him. And the referee is Judo Gene LaBelle.
No way.
Yeah, so Judo Gene LaBelle's the referee. And Inoki's just lying on his back kicking him. And he's kicking him with like roundhouse kicks. Like, look at this. So he's fucking Ali's legs up, man.
That's bonkers.
When you're a guy who makes his living off of his footwork, which was Ali, like this was super dangerous. Look, he's getting him in a leg lock.
So obviously this wasn't boxing. This is
it was some weird hybrid fight that, I think Ali just needed money and they talked him into doing this. But
Look at those fights we get today. Is that sort of like what this was going on? These crazy exhibition real fights that are happening?
well, sort of, but this was
I don't know
real.
what you call it.
Inoki was really trying to hurt him. He really did kick the shit out of his legs. And Ali really... See if you can find any articles on Ali's legs after the Inoki bout.
That's bold.
I think he really fucked his legs up because he didn't know how to check kicks. He didn't know what to even do. And all of a sudden this guy's on his back, roundhouse kicking his legs and stomping at his knees. Yeah. So who knows if his knees got hyperextended, he tore his meniscus. Like, who knows what the fuck happened there?
Jeez. Have you ever seen, there's an old Polish documentary that's them training in the 1970s, and they're doing all that kind of crazy stuff. And
two blood
throwing
clots.
logs. And
Look at it. It said he has blood clots in his leg.
Where did I see it?
Where does it say that?
Nearly ended Ali's career.
It was in the, right before I clicked on it, it said it in the little two sentences.
Finally, at the 15th round, they called it a draw. Wow. Ali is bleeding from the legs. He gets an infection in his legs, and he almost has to have an amputation. Holy shit. Extended stay in the hospital was the best case scenario coming out of the fight. Wow.
What year
So
was
Muhammad
this?
Ali suffering 2 blood clots and an infection in his leg from Inoki's vicious grounded kicks, according to the Sweet Science. Wow. Wow. When he finally did... So look at this. So he said he continued his tour of Asia despite this, competing in exhibition matches in South Korea and the Philippines before returning to the United States. When he finally did get back to the U.S., Ali needed to stay in Los Angeles hospital for multiple weeks to recover from injuries sustained in the Inoki fight. Holy shit, man.
He put him on ice, man.
They were concerned Ali's injuries could even be life-threatening. Well, that's staph infection. He was bleeding from the legs, got an infection in his legs, almost had to have an amputation. Bro, staph infections are fucking terrifying.
Have you had one?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had 2. Twice I've had staph.
I
Not bad,
had a
though.
blood
I
clot.
caught it both times.
I had a blood clot one time. I got jammed up, smoked my ankle, and it was like, didn't think much of it. Felt like just kind of weird. Got hot, got swollen. I'm competing all over the world, and I'm like, yeah, this kind of feels weird. And the doctor's like, hey, man, you need to get that checked up. Of course, jumped back on a plane, went across the country, and they said that I had a blood clot from my knee to my hip.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So it was blocking off the blood
It's
coming
blocking
through the
off,
vein.
yeah, and my calf was giant. And
What do they do about that?
I just started taking blood thinners and stuff, and so which was cool.
But you can't get cut.
Couldn't get cut, which is kind of funny because I got on the blood thinners and I just pulled an alligator tag like a couple days before.
No.
So I told the doctor, he's like, don't do anything that'll get you cut. I was like, well, I'm going alligator hunting tonight. And he's like, haha. And I was like, no, seriously. He's like, no, you'll bleed out if you get bit. And I'm like, yeah, but I probably won't bleed out. So I remember like in the middle of the night in the swamp, giving myself shots of whatever that stuff was in my stomach.
Oh my God.
I'm not very smart. So
how long do you have to take the blood thinners for before
I took
it dissolves?
them for about 6 to 8 months.
Whoa.
Because I started on the shots, and then I went to like the warfarin tabs, and they had to keep checking me because they had to let it all break out. And so I'd have to once a month get it ultrasounded. And
there's no better way. Can't they pull that out of there or something?
Yeah, that's what I would have
Get
thought.
some
They were
tweezers?
like,
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy. So I was at a Christmas party a couple months later, and my doctor saw me, and he was like, hey, and he had a couple beers in him. So he's like, hey, he's like, you're going to do, you or one of your descendants are going to do something special for this world. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you know where that blood clot should have been? I go, where? And he just tapped me on the chest. He's like, right there. He goes, no way you shouldn't have died on that one. I go, really? He goes, you heated it, you iced it, you massaged it, you flew, you trained. He goes, you did everything if you were trying to commit suicide by blood clot for months. He goes, how it didn't travel, I have no idea.
Whoa.
But when someone tells you that, you're like, well, that's cool. I guess things are going to go awesome for a while.
Or you just got lucky.
Yeah. And then what happened, my lower leg basically, they said it grew another vein. So it grew a bypass around it.
No.
So all the swelling started going down, and they're like, yeah, one of your minimized veins or smaller veins actually grew in capacity and just worked its way around. They're like, the human body will do that. I'm like, so it just worked its way around the bypass.
What would have happened, though, if you didn't get that vein diluted with the blood thinners or that blood clot?
Something to kick loose. I mean, it was right at my hip.
It doesn't go away? Your body doesn't absorb it ever?
I mean, if the the hematocrit or whatever, the blood, the thickness of the blood was still of that, if it ever broke loose, he's like, it would have gone to your heart or your head. That would have been a stroke or heart attack. And, but it's weird, and it was just an ankle injury.
That's crazy.
Smoked it. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll be fine. Started walking it off. And what screwed me is the next day, it was all black and blue, the whole deal, right? I'm walking. Everything's not fine. It sucked. And I had to go on a business trip. And I was like, let me go check and make sure it's not broken, that I have to get it actually fixed. I went to the doctor and they're like, hey, you got to immobilize this thing. And I'd been walking for a week. And so they wrapped it up and mobilized it. And I remember I was on a plane, I was sleeping, and it felt like someone lit a fire in my calf. And I was like, wow, what was that? And I went to my hotel room and I filled the trash can up with ice and I just dumped my leg in there to cool my leg down. And that was in May. And I competed at the Hammer World Championships all the way to Labor Day. And I was in San Francisco, and I'm like, something's weird. And I pulled down my knee sleeve, and one of the docs was there, and he's like, what is going on with your leg? And I'm like, I think I pulled a hamstring or something. He's like, nah, you didn't. And so I came back, called my guy at South Carolina Sports Medicine, and he got me in right away. And he's like, dude, you got a big-ass blood clot, and you got to get this squared away now.
Holy, imagine if you didn't do that.
Right.
Imagine if you
just die. You would just been like, hey,
one day you would have just died.
I would have been a 30-year-old, really healthy guy that just keeled over. And so it's like that kind of hits you. And that was honestly kind of the end of my competitive sports world, because I started realizing all I cared about was winning, and all I cared about was training and winning. And I forewent social relationships, being smart with my body and all this stuff, because I was like, no, I'm going to win worlds. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to be top, blah, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And it was just drive. And I was like, man, I didn't see this very obvious thing that could and should have killed me. It's like, I need to grow up. I need to refocus how I'm looking at these things. And so I had to mature and just okay, I've competed for 15 or 20 years or whatever it was at that point. It's like, maybe take a pump the brakes for a second and just go am I making good choices for my family, good choices for my business, people that rely on me? Because if, cool in all things, but if Bert just keels over, that's not optimal for really anyone.
It's interesting how you can get completely caught up in one goal to the point where you don't see anything else in life and you just miss out on a giant chunk of life. But if you want to be the best at something, it's the trade-off.
It's the
That's the
trade-off.
Neil Brennan joke. That's the trade-off.
Yeah, I've talked about the rabbit hole guy versus the 90% guy. And the 90% guy, which I think I've kind of turned into, if I train for something and get into something, I've generally found if I really care about it, I could be as good as 90% of the world at it, a lot of different things.
Right.
But if you're the guy that wants to go down to be the best, the GOAT, you have to go down so far around the rabbit hole and forsake all other things to where you lose sight of reality.
By the way, you could still not make it.
And you could still not make it.
Yeah, you could be in the same weight class as John Jones.
Right. And you're just I picked the wrong era to be alive, right?
Yeah, there's Mike Tyson in 1986. Whoops. So you want to be a heavyweight boxer. Oh, no.
Yeah. And that's
Tyrell Biggs.
That's the weird part is you could be the rabbit hole guy and go so far down and lose sight of life and still be the number 3 guy ever.
Yeah.
And, I kind of use the Yoda, the Dagobah Forest. That's where people went to get all the force. They don't write books about the 90% guy.
Right.
They write books about the weirdo that lived in the forest. There was a little green man that knew the force. However, though,
that guy might be miserable.
Might be miserable, man.
Yeah.
And I've seen it a lot.
Yeah. You got to know when to stop.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun to do in the beginning, but you got to know when to stop.
I mean, I would say you're probably as good or better than 90+% of the human population at fighting. Probably.
Probably, yeah.
You're probably better at 90% of the human population at shooting a bow. Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Right. And so you start looking at things, you're like, oh, the things
Yeah, but
I
if you want to be Levi Morgan, there's a long road.
It's a long road.
It's a long road.
Yeah.
Long-ass road. And, like, if you want to beat Gordon Ryan, you're probably never going to catch him because he's already still doing it.
Yeah, and he's not doing archery, and he's not doing a
Right.
podcast,
Exactly.
and he's not doing a thing.
Exactly.
And then so like I've had to kind of went to this thing. I was like, do I want to be a 90% guy that enjoys semi-balance in my life and is really passionate about 3 or 4 or 5 things and be really, really good? Or do I want to throw all my chips in? And the probability is I won't be the GOAT.
Right. Especially if it's a competitive thing.
Right.
Where it gets weird, real tricky with some people is if maybe it's a thing that's not a competitive thing and you can keep doing it. Right?
Yes.
Like my friend Gary Clark Jr., when he records albums, he goes crazy and he locks himself in the studio and he's there for like fucking 12 hours, like every day. And it drives his family nuts. He's just like constantly working on his music because to him, like, he wants to be all in.
Yes.
Like that's where he lives. That's where he creates this great music when he's all in. And you could sacrifice all the other things in your life. You're not going to work out. You're not going to go on trips. You're not going to. All you're doing is just whatever that thing. Maybe it's painting. Whatever. Maybe it's writing books. Whatever it is, you're all in.
And although it's beautiful, I don't know if I'm that guy.
You don't have to be.
You know, and also I had to look at myself.
In the greater, if you're looking at the universe, if you look at the greater picture of everything, it's not really important what you do here in this life. But for you, it is.
Right.
And the problem is if you're compelled to try to be number one and you don't really chase it, you're always going to have that thing in the back of your head.
Correct.
I never really went for it.
Yes.
At least you went for it for a long time. And that's the thing. Like, that I think is the best way. Go for something but know when to stop.
That's where it was for me.
Yeah, don't be a 70-year-old dude out there in the Olympics throwing a hammer.
Please don't. Please don't. No, you're
Who's
exactly
the oldest
right.
guy who ever threw the hammer?
Ah, gosh. Well, actually, one of my mentors, Judd Logan. So this dude made 4 Olympic teams, and in the hammer, and then got out of it. And he was a coach. And then every time that he would hit a 50-year, 55-year, or 60-year, he would train for 3 or 4 months, break the all-time world record in that age class, and he would go off again for 5 years.
Good Lord.
And he would just come back and he would do it again and just shatter the world record. And he would come back and he'd do it. And he just did that up until pretty much when he passed.
Did he keep training the entire time? Like, how did he be able to come back? And
He was very genetically gifted, and he was a coach, so he was always doing it and kind of screwing around.
And then he'd get serious.
But then he would
every
get
5
serious
years.
for the last little bit. and all of his kids would come out, all of his guys he coached. And I mean, he was just I wish
At
he
the
would
end, like when he was like 70, how far away was he from guys who were 30?
He knocked me out of the Olympic trial finals in 2004, and he was 40. Gosh, he was probably 45, 46 years old. He's like a little bit younger than me now, but I was 27 and in my prime.
Wow.
And that would have been his 6th Olympic trials. And you're just like, but it's Judd, right? Like
Right.
he's a mythical Bill Brasky creature. Like he's Judd. And you're just like, dang it.
Yeah.
Judd's going to figure out a way. And he just generally, his 4th
how
Olympic.
many age class world records did he hold?
He went 50, 55, and 60, and then he passed away a couple years ago. Actually, he got had cancer, and then he had some COVID complications. It sucked, man. I mean, you talk about a guy that's just that statuesque, like best conversationalist, like poured into all these kids and stuff, and just like he's the coach you always wanted to have, and you're just like, but. Things happen.
It's interesting when you watch the way different people live their life because you could see benefits and you could see where it would be a detriment to the rest of your life. And it allows us to look through these mythical creatures like that guy, these John Jones type characters, these Carl Gotches, and go, but is that what I want to do?
Correct.
Like, you should know what you want to do. Don't get tricked into doing something you don't want to do because there's people out there that really want to do that. And if you don't really want to do that,
Right.
you're never going to beat them anyway.
Ever.
Ever.
You're already most likely not going
Right.
to.
Already most likely not going to.
yeah.
But if you're not really sure, you're fucked.
You're dead in the water.
If you got 1 foot in, guess what, bitch? You're gonna get that foot's gonna be snatched up by a crocodile.
yeah, one foot in the grave and one on a roller skate.
Yeah, you can't compete with a really obsessed, talented person if you're not really obsessed and talented.
And the weird part is when you look at yourself and kind of question that, like, am I a 90% guy? And some people aren't either. Some people are like, I don't care what happens, man. I'd be average, and that just sounds horrible, right?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like you're gonna get anywhere, and you're not gonna be interesting.
Not in the least.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, you're not going to attract other interesting people because they're not going to want to be around you.
Right. And the biggest
Unless
part,
you're really funny.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah.
The biggest part about being interesting is being interested.
Right.
You know, ask a lot of questions. Be interested as crap. Like, that's where I think one of your superpowers, besides you have a steel trap for a brain, you've recalled things that we've talked about. Like, I was like, I didn't know he was listening to that. That was pretty impressive. But the thing is, when you come to that, like, am I a rabbit hole guy? Am I a 90% guy? In my opinion, those are the only two choices. Like, the other ones, screw those. But when you kind of like really look at, like, have you ever seen like where your line really is?
My
like,
line?
Your line. Like when, like, you're like, I will go this far, but that's as far as I'll go.
Right.
Like down that rabbit hole to whatever that is, or whatever stressor or whatever that may be. And it's weird. I hadn't done it. And in recent, like, I had an experience. It was like, okay, there's my line. Okay, that's.
What did you do?
I was in Africa, and I was hunting Cape buffalo, which is the most dangerous thing. It kills
bow
more.
or rifle?
Rifle, but still, it's one of those things. You get in there close, and everyone's like, go with the bow, right?
Oh, you could die. Yeah.
You die. It was pretty hairy. It kills more people than everyone. You know, we had
What do they
awesome
taste like?
They're actually awesome. We did the innerloins that night. It was in Namibia. It was fantastic. And that cool part about that is we donated the meat to the local village, and they were super stoked. Wild part is after we gutted it, there's like 400 pounds of guts on a buffalo. And I'm like, oh, are y'all going to like truck this out to the desert or out to the place and like let the hyenas? And they're like, no, the villagers are taking. I was like, the guts. And they said, yeah, no, like there will be a party tonight. No running water. Hearts, lungs, liver, stomach, guts. And they go, they will be so excited to get that. And so that was for me, I go, oh, we think we understand poverty. We think we understand in this country, like, what not having. We're like, oh, yeah, I didn't have a whatever. Like, no, this village is stoked to get 400 pounds of guts off a Cape buffalo that's been laying in the woods dead for the last 10 hours.
Really?
They were pumped. Like,
Old guts,
old hot guts. And we put a tarp over it so before we could get back out there to get the bull out of the, out of the jungle or whatever it would be called. So it didn't get super hot, but struck a big black 2,000-pound animal.
What are they doing with the guts? How are they eating it?
They said they'll wash out all the fluids or all the guts, shit and everything else, and they'll put it on the grill and fry it and do all this. Like they said, protein does not go to waste in Africa at all.
Wow.
So I'm like, you guys are going to, of course, eat a heart, but they're like, yeah, they're eating heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, like anything. Like,
what does lungs taste like?
Boy, I don't know. I don't know if I want to know.
I've always thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like when you open up an elk, you look at it like, can you eat this? Like, what does this taste like?
Have you eaten heart? I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, I eat heart every
good,
time.
right?
I love heart. I eat liver rather. I eat the liver and I eat the heart.
Yeah. But,
it seems like lungs are I've never heard of anybody.
And then stomach and stomach line. I guess that's what haggis is, right? Isn't like haggis, lungs, and
you know what I know a lot of guys do? They take the caul fat from and then they chop up meat and then they'll wrap it in the caul fat and put it on the grill.
Ranella did that, didn't he?
Yeah.
That looked really cool.
He did. Looked real good. Season it and then wrap it in caul fat and then slice it open.
We ate the inner loins and they were really good, but they were talking about how the villagers out there, they're like, yeah, all this meat that these hunters get, like it all goes to the villages. I think people understand like how much that changes the game.
So when you say your line, what did you mean by that?
Well, they had another opportunity to do a lion hunt.
Oh, yeah, I'm not interested.
And that was my line.
Yeah.
It was like, for multiple reasons.
Well, first of all, you're not going to eat it.
Right.
You could. I mean, I know dudes who eat mountain lion. It's delicious. Sure. Mountain lion is actually really good. According to everybody that I know that's eaten it, they're not lying.
Yeah.
There's people that are iffy on bear.
I enjoy bear. The rivets, of course.
Yeah,
They
they know how to
some
cook
bears.
it.
Yeah.
But the reality of a lion is, I don't think anybody's out there eating African lions.
Yeah, right. And they're just a multitude. I mean, they're a big. I mean, I got nothing against a lion to start with.
They're too cool.
They're cool, but
I don't want to eat a lion.
they're big. They're scary. They hide really well. They're really fast.
They're dope.
There's
if
a lot
if
of
they didn't
stuff.
exist, you'd be pumped. If somebody put one of those in a movie, you'd be like, what a cool, awesome animal.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's just like, okay, like for a multitude of reasons, like I'm a hunter guy, I enjoy this. Like, okay, not that one. Okay. And then not this. And then you start looking at even training. You're like, hey, I'll do this, but I won't do that.
Right.
And
I don't want to shoot anything I'm not going to eat. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in going to hunt something that's inedible. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I get how people want to do it, but I feel like the same about fishing. Like, I don't want to catch stuff that you can't eat.
yeah, you fish a good bit, don't you?
Yeah, I love
What's
fishing.
your favorite thing to fish?
I mean, if I really had the time and I don't, it would be like salmon fishing in a river.
Really?
That's some of the most fun because they're so big and they're so strong and the
Lock
way they
into
jump.
'em.
And there's something about rivers, like ocean's cool. I love ocean fishing, but it's like less personal.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about being on a small boat on a river and you hook a salmon. It's and you see it jump. Like my friend Ari and I, we went up to Anchorage a few years back and we did a show. We did some salmon fishing. It was really fun. And then I've done a lot of trout fishing. I love bass fishing.
Yeah.
Bass fishing's always fun. Top water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Late summer.
Watch them smash
oh,
that.
That's the best. Big frog going across a lily pad.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Have you ever done a? I probably would be a bad idea for you, but like I put a green light under my dock in my house.
Oh, wow.
Dude, cheat code.
Oh, and they all come to
It's the
it.
coolest thing.
Oh, yeah.
So in the spring and February through March, April, and then right now they're happening again. The striped bass will school under it,
Oh, whoa.
and it's like you're catching 4 to 15 pound fish every
Oh,
night.
that's awesome.
Every night. And so
That
I'll
is
sit up at the
so
house
cheating.
and I'll yeah, no, seriously. So I'll be with the wife and we'll have a glass of wine. I was like, all right, we'll go to bed. And I was like, well, I'm going to go fish. She's like, you're going fishing now? I said, I'll be back. Don't worry. And because you only get like 2 or 3 casts before they blow off the light, but you're going to catch 2 or 3 fish every night on the first 2 or 3 casts,
Oh, wow.
which is awesome.
Well, it's a great way to get food.
Yeah, no. And so
Yeah.
you go catch a 7 or 8 pound striper, gut him, throw him in the ice, and then do it. So I would literally fish, catch my 2 or 3 fish, and sometimes I got them when I was fly fishing for them. So you catch like a 10 pound striper on a fly rod, which is badass.
Dude, I went to Mexico once and we went mahi-mahi fishing.
Yeah.
And then they cooked it within an hour of us
Oh,
catching it.
son.
I was like, oh my God, this is so much better than any fish I've ever had before. And then you realize that the more time it waits after it's dead, it goes to supermarkets, sits on a shelf, you lose all that.
You lose it.
The flavor of them right when they pull it, I'm like, this is the best fish I've ever had in my life. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It was so delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best. You need to get one of those green lights on your dock.
Sounds like fun.
Oh man, Deep Glow is the one.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link for it.
Okay.
It's super easy to do. And mine kicks on right before dark.
Oh, nice.
And or if you get up early because they have the longest time to school on it, and so they're like everything's silent. You go out there and smash a couple. Sun comes up. It's great.
Oh, that's a good move.
No,
man.
it's the and then
That
you
is
got
a cheat
kids
code.
too, because then
Right.
it makes you actually a bad fisherman because after that you're just like, I don't feel like going out. Like I'll just catch them tonight.
right.
And then everyone starts like marking your spots. And
It's like the guys out here that hunt over deer feeders.
yeah, it works.
It does work.
It works.
But they'll tell you, it's like, well, we hunt, but it's
it's
it's kind of like farming.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
It's not elk.
No, it's definitely, I mean, you're sitting down the whole day, like
Yeah.
waiting, eating chips.
It's good. It's a good time to catch up with emails, talk to your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. Like the ground blind guys
Yeah.
like to sit in ground blinds all day.
Yeah.
It's a totally different thing.
I did it this morning.
Yeah. It's fun.
I did it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was awesome. It was fantastic.
It's a great way to pig hunt.
Oh yeah.
You know-
Yeah. I stuck one 2 nights ago.
The thing about pigs out here too is like they actually have to hunt them.
Yes.
So like you're actually doing a service to the environment by getting food.
Yeah.
And if you get a good butcher that can turn that into sausage,
Oh.
it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. My little boy, he killed his first pig last week. He's 8 years old.
What was it like when you ate it?
It was awesome. We did it for Thanksgiving.
When he was like, wow.
He thought it was so super
this
cool.
is
So we yanked the back straps out. I marinated in Coke for like 36 hours.
Coca-Cola?
Coca-Cola.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of broke it down. I learned that from Jen Rivet. So she would do bear with like Dr. Pepper.
No kidding.
Yeah. And
Oh,
then
they know how to cook some bears up
man,
there.
you know that work, you know.
Yeah.
So we did that and then like made a kind of like butter and all this kind of cool kind of drizzly deal, wrapped it in bacon, could wrap pork and bacon, and then put it on the grill. It was freaking awesome.
Do you know that guy? He's a cook. He's on YouTube. What is it? His name Guga, G-U-G-A,
Who's that?
Guga Foods. He's always cooking steak, like different ways to cook steak.
Oh.
But the other way he did it the other day was he marinated it in buttermilk for like a week.
What?
Yeah, took a steak, marinated in buttermilk for a week, and like when he pulled the steak out, like, you could see like the buttermilk was breaking the steak down. That's it, Guga Foods. That dude. See if you can find his buttermilk steak
man.
one. Oh, he's
look
cooks
at
a
that.
brisket and Coca-Cola. This guy is every human way possible to cook a steak. This
No
guy's
way.
done it.
What's
like
your favorite way
everything.
to cook a steak?
I am a reverse sear guy.
Same.
Yeah, I got taught that by Chad from Whiskey Bent Barbecue. He says that the best way, particularly for wild game, it's without a doubt it's the best way for wild game. Take it, and so here it is with buttermilk. So he did it one for 24 hours, and he did one of them where he sat it in the buttermilk for a week, and he said it was sensational.
We
Maybe
do
you
that
want
with
to try
ducks.
it. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, buttermilk just pull. We do that with ducks afterwards, and pulls out a lot of stuff out there. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
This guy knows how to cook some fucking steak.
Yeah, let's do
But
it.
my way is I like to use the either Traeger or the best way, honestly, if I have the time, is I use an offset grill with
Okay.
actual hardwood.
Sure.
So I'll cook, get some live oak in there,
Yep.
and I'll get it up to about 250 degrees, and then I'll put the steaks in there with meter thermometers, and I get it internally up to about 120.
Yep.
And then either I sear it on a cast iron pan, or I also have one of those infrared
Yep.
things. What are those called again? Fuck, they sent it to me. I should shout them out. I know who Sean Baker uses them all the time, but it's like a tray.
Sean's
and
awesome.
Yeah, he's great, and it runs on gas, and so you just
Yep.
slide it in there, and it's like an overhead grill. What is it called? Auto Wild Grill.
Auto
That's
Wild.
it. Auto Wild Grill.
How
So-
about Sean being a freak for eating a bunch of meat and
Yeah.
being a giant
70
person?
years old. He's fucking throwing insane weight around. No TRT.
Wild.
No nothing.
I
Box
remember him from the
squats.
throws days.
Oh, do you
Yeah,
really?
we used to compete.
Oh, he's
yeah.
a big fucking dude.
He's a
man.
monster. Yeah.
And he's very smart,
He is.
And anybody who says that you can't only eat meat, you need to pay attention to him because that's all he eats. And
Yeah.
he looks super fucking healthy.
Yep.
And he's doing jiu-jitsu and training, and, he's older than me.
Yeah, he was at he spoke at Summer Strong last year and came in, and then he was deadlifting with everyone. He pulled like a 6-something deadlift and then like 400 for 25 reps or something like that. And he's just like, "Hey, I'm gonna go have another steak." I'm like, and got
Yeah,
me kind of on it.
Eats steaks all day long. That's all he eats. He doesn't even take vitamins, I don't think. I think he just eats
I
steak.
know you've done carnivore. I actually called Sean about it because I was like, all right, I need to like give this a whirl, but
It's worth it. It's worth doing.
yeah,
Yeah, it's legit.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what happened? I don't do it all the time.
Sure.
I'll eat pasta if I feel like it. I'll have vegetables if I feel like it. But I would say 90% of my food is meat.
Yeah.
Meat or eggs.
Meat or eggs. Yeah.
I think that's the most nutrient-dense food.
Yep.
My body reacts better when I'm not running on carbohydrates. I'm running on ketones, or when your body processes protein and turns it into glucose, which is like just more regulated for
Yep.
me. For me, you do whatever you want, but I would say try it if you're a person that eats meat. I would say give it a shot.
Yeah.
Just give it a month. 1 month. I did one time. I lost 12 pounds. I felt fucking great. I had all this energy, and I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm poisoning myself. I'm like limiting my performance, at least my mental performance."
Right. Yeah, I started getting on it a month or two ago, just a bit. I was like, give it a shot. I was eating a ton of venison, but gosh, I love blackberries. Blackberries and cottage cheese, I think, are like the weirdest thing that I could eat it.
I don't think there's
until-
anything wrong with fruit.
Yeah,
That's
If
like
I could
Paul
smash
Saladino's
all
move.
that.
I eat fruit. So what Paul does is he incorporates fruit, honey, and raw dairy with meat.
Okay.
And then Sean just eats meat.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine an argument where fruit's bad for you. I would say don't eat all the fruit.
Right.
You know?
That's the
But, like,
problem. I could
have
bomb.
a couple oranges or have a couple bananas or a bowl of blueberries with some yogurt. Why is that bad? It can't be bad.
Can't be bad, right?
No, they're good for you. They're filled with vitamins. They taste good. It's like it's enjoyable to eat a piece of melon. It tastes good. It's fun.
Hey, again, I'm not trying to be the goat at not eating blueberries.
I think the number one thing is don't eat bullshit. And when you go on a carnivore diet, you are automatically cutting out a lot of bullshit. You're cutting out a lot of like enriched wheat and processed fucking grains and all this bullshit. And you're cutting out pesticides that might be on your shit. And there's a lot of things you're cutting out when you're just eating steak.
Yeah. Do you eat a lot of whitetail or no?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, if I get one.
Sure.
I have one in the freezer now.
19 elk a year.
Yeah, 2. But I got 2 whitetails last year.
That's
too.
awesome.
I turned them into sausages, and I cooked the back straps and butter and garlic. Oh, back straps and butter and garlic.
Dude.
That's one that a lot of times I just like to cook on a cast iron pan.
Yes.
Especially whitetail. There's something about whitetail tenderloins with butter and garlic that is hard to beat.
That's my kid's favorite food.
So hard to beat.
Yeah.
A little salt, garlic, butter,
cracked pepper. Oh, so stupid good.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So good.
My son and I will eat like easily a full loin. Like he
and
calls
you feel fantastic.
It's
you
unbelievable.
feel like you feel the vitamins in the meat. You know, it's like that's what an animal is supposed to make you feel like when you eat it.
Yeah. Whitetail gets a bad news. Like, oh, just a whitetail. I mean, whitetails are great.
People are silly.
Yeah, they are. Well,
People are so silly when it comes to. I know people who don't even eat their elk. They don't eat their elk. They go elk hunting and then they donate it to the church.
a lot of work for.
They just like to hunt, which I mean, I guess it's okay because you're providing people with free food and
Sure.
it doesn't go to waste. But it's the best food in the world, and you're not eating it.
Yeah, the best.
That seems so crazy to me.
Yeah.
You know, I cook up every week. I cook up like a bunch of elk meat in a bunch of different ways, and then I have it in the fridge. So that's my
Do you
meal
eat it
prep
cold?
for the
I
week.
saw that. Do you eat it cold?
Cold
or?
with hot sauce. That's
that
what
the
I like
move?
to do. I like to take a plate,
All right.
put some meat on there, dump some hot sauce on the plate, and just dip it in the hot sauce and eat
Any
it
good
cold.
hot sauce? Any specific?
Well, I like it hot. I actually have my own little collaboration that I did with Senor Lechuga.
I saw that.
There's
Yeah.
3 different hot sauces. One of them comes from my friend Andrew at a Half-Face Blades. He had one. It was so good that I said, can I include that one? Because I'm doing a collaboration. We made an agreement.
Sure.
So it's like it has the Half-Face Blades logo on it as well. Yeah. That's with sun-dried peppers.
I saw that.
Tell you what all the stuff is. See, go to the Senor Lechuga site.
I made my son. I got Andy to make me a half-face blade for me, my dad, and my 2 boys, so they all matching. And the goal of it was you either carry your dad's, your son's, or your brother's knife. So we all switch.
Oh, that's cool.
And I cut my son, who's 8 years old now. I cut his umbilical cord with his knife. Which is weird. I sent that to Andy.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it was awesome. I rubbed his first drop of blood into the handle.
Give him that knife. So heirloom tomatoes, winter truffle, and reapers.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yeah, that's Andy's. And that one fucking
that's
rules. But the other ones rule too. The habanero, urfa chili, paprika, that's a fucking banger. But these are hot
Where
sauces.
can I buy these now?
SenorLechuga.com.
Okay, sweet.
SenorLechugahotsauce.com, rather.
Awesome. Have you ever done a deer leg?
If you can't.
I'm not like a hot. I'm like a tasty.
It's
hot.
tasty.
Okay.
But it's going to fuck you up if you're not ready. Like
It's really like that.
Yeah, it's real. Like that guy makes hot sauce. It's got reapers in it. It's like it's legit. It kicks your ass. I sweat. My kids make fun of me because I'm bald. So like when I sweat, it's just pouring down my face.
Right.
They're like, "What is wrong with you?"
It's like
Hot
I'm
peppers.
a sweater.
Hot peppers.
Have you ever done a deer leg like the flip flop style? Have you ever seen the
What do you mean?
Andy flip flop guy? I have to cook it for you sometime. So badass. So you get a deer leg with the shank still on it. Mm-hmm. Super hot grill.
Put it on the coals.
The grill's like hot as shit. Like
1100
degrees, like cooking, right? Blasting. So he has this special sauce, and his granddad, I believe, started it. It's a special sauce that's like
The way to flip flop.
Yeah.
Best way to grill venison. All right, let me see what you got.
Yeah, so you basically get this sauce, you mix it with wine, you paint it with a rosemary brush, you salt and pepper it, and then you flip it, you just put it down on the grill. 30 seconds.
Okay.
While you're cooking that side, you're painting the other side, salt and pepper in it. And you flip it, you shave the first 1/4 inch.
Oh.
And then so that side, and so the long as it takes you to shave the first 1/4 inch, repaint it, re-salt and pepper it, and then you flip it. And so when you're in it, you're going to consume an entire deer leg in the next hour and a half, and you're in it.
Oh, you know what that's like?
So freaking
that's
good.
Like Brazilian steakhouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a churrascaria.
But it just boom, 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 boom. So we'll do it at parties, and you're like, you get a couple dudes, you get your boys, and you're all drinking some bourbon. Yeah,
oh,
here it is
look
right there.
at that.
Yeah.
And just slicing
You
pieces
slice
off.
it, and it's so good, man.
That looks sensational.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, my God.
He taught me how to do it, and I've actually gone to a couple events and like helped him out. But I've cooked him at birthday parties, and
oh, that's a great idea.
it's so dope.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm supposed to hunt with Ranella in March. Maybe we'll try that.
Yeah. If you want me to know, I'll freaking cook one for you.
I'm sure you could do that with any other wild game, too.
Yeah, we've done it with sheep. We've done elk is kind of a monster.
Well, it's such a big leg.
Yeah.
But if you have a smaller sort of...
That's the move. And now you'll paint it, and then you'll salt and pepper in it. Big-ass knife like that so you don't burn your knuckles.
That looks fucking great.
It's insane.
And what is in the sauce again?
He won't tell me exactly, but
what the fuck?
Come on, Andy, get with it.
He won't tell you.
But
What kind of bullshit is that?
It has all kinds of...
So there it is. 2 bottles of Private Reserve, our flagship sauce. Oh, it's the sauce.
Well, it's the sauce, yeah.
Bottle of, won't tell you what's in the sauce.
Right.
1 bottle of red wine, Cabernet or Zinfandel will work depending on if you're non-binary. Salt and pepper to taste. 1/4 cup to 1/2 bottle of rosemary-infused olive oil.
Move.
Boy, that's a big gap. 1/4 cup to 1/2 bottle.
It's like a glug, 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 and then you drink bourbon.
3 to 4 loaves of
wine.
French bread,
Yep.
several sprigs of fresh rosemary.
It's awesome.
Sounds pretty fucking good.
Dude, it's...
Bert, I think we did like 3 hours
Did
and
we?
20 minutes. How long have we
Shit.
done? Up? More? 3.5? 3:30.
That's no Evan Hafer, but
Dude, time just flew by.
that's super fun.
It was a lot of fun, man. Thank you very
fun.
much. Thanks for your awesome equipment, too.
Thanks.
I should tell everybody you outfitted my gym at home. It's fucking incredible.
Thanks, man.
Keeps me from going nuts. It's the best. I love all your equipment. It's fucking so fantastic. You know what I use like almost every day is that Frankenhyper.
Yeah.
That thing is so versatile.
Back feeling better?
Oh, it's so great. It's such a good device because you can do reverse hypers, you can do back extensions, you can do sit-ups off of it.
Yeah.
You can do so many different things off of it.
Well, I have a new module coming. We're relaunching it. So if you want, bring your old one here, and I'll put the new one in your house.
What are you going to do? What is the
It
difference?
has some assisted and resisted abilities. So you could do some if you're not quite as strong, you're come back, return to play. So there's some different stuff that you could do with it. I'll show you.
Oh, okay.
It's
Well,
cool.
you're very innovative, man. Your stuff is
Thank
really
you.
cool.
It means a lot.
And you've also outfitted the whole UFC PI center. You go there, it's all Sorin shit. It's cool. Whenever
man.
Whenever I go to a gym and I see Sorin it makes me feel happy. It's cool.
I appreciate it. I'll be honest, it makes me feel really happy when I see you wear Sornex shirts. It's like, man, that's dope. Like, I appreciate that.
My pleasure, brother.
Thank you.
All right, website?
Sornex.com.
Sornex.com. There it is at the UFC PI. That's all
PI.
Sornex equipment. Social media. What's your Instagram?
I'm
People wanna
Bert
follow you.
Sorin.
All right, and there's the new machine, the X Factor, that
Yeah.
we just got today here at the studio. All right, my brother. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
brother. Thank you,
Appreciate
Joe.
All right, bye everybody.